cultfigga TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yamin Revolution. I got some late breaking news the revolutionaries can use. Military equipment. Military equipment is stolen from the California Army bases. Who has it and what the hell is going on? Before I get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. Well, y'all know my voice is harsh from rooting for my Houston Texans yesterday, but we still gonna get through this thing. Got to update y'all on this late breaking news.
This is Dabu 7. We have word that there has been a break-in at the U.S. Army Reserve Center in Tustin, California. They're saying the 3 Humvees and multiple other machine gun type of equipment mounts have been stolen in this event. They say that these unknown suspects entered the storage warehouse at this Army Reserve Center.
The CIA.
Multiple lockers were discovered with locks cut and removed.
Now, the CIA is going to say ISIS got their hands on this hardware. When ISIS allegedly strikes somewhere in America real soon, because here it is. And this should be all over all of the major news stations, but it's not, because they don't want y'all to know that terrorists got their hands on high-powered military equipment and some of our top-notch armored Humvees.
There was also missing gear. There was an attempt to get into the uniform storage, but they could not get in there. They were unsuccessful. A fence was then cut to gain access to a parking area where 3 Humvees were stolen. They left the area at an unknown time. They said that in this, the 3 Humvees, one is armored, and then the other 2 have the cloth type of doors. They say also 8 machine gun vehicle mounts were stolen, 7 freestanding machine gun tripods, medical equipment, 40 pairs of binoculars, and 18 bayonets. So this is brazen. This is big. You don't see this every day. With everything that's been ongoing, this could very well be tied into an upcoming event. What is somebody going to do with all this stuff?
Pull up that good dynamite.
Some could say sell it. It could also be utilized in some kind of event around the corner. We've got a lot of things that can happen here in the coming days. The next 10, 11 days, I would keep your eyes wide open. But this is the latest. If you see anything out there that looks suspicious, head on a swivel. I'll report on more if I come across it. Follow me on X for more information as well, and join me for the live streams.
Now, they should be reporting this all over the news, but they're not. Military equipment stolen from bases in California. They will be blaming ISIS. Whenever the terrorist attack happened, they're going to say ISIS stole this stuff. They're liars. They did it.
Alert. 3 Humvees stolen from an Army Reserve Center in Tustin, California, just outside Santa Ana. What in the world is going on here, folks? My command center here has an alert by the Tustin Police Department talking about some Humvees, but then it says that they've been recovered. Who stole Humvees on January 8th? When all this fire stuff is going on right outside Santa Ana. Santa Ana wins, folks. Let me share with you this here, and it says Tustin Police Department press release, and it's saying theft of military equipment on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025.
Never let a good crisis go to waste. The CIA did not waste time stealing this military equipment while the fires was going on to continue their terrorism. They already told y'all ISIS and Iran want to kill y'all. Remember that.
Between 8 p.m. and 11:30 p.m., so this was at night, unknown suspects entered a storage warehouse at the Army Reserve Center in Tustin. Multiple storage lockers were discovered with locks removed and missing gear. An attempt was made to cut a lock to the uniform storage. However, that was unsuccessful. A fence was cut to gain access to a military vehicle parking lot where 3 Humvees were stolen. Suspects left the area at an unknown time. The Army has informed us there is no known loss of weapons or ammunition other than what was listed below. Here you go. 3 Humvees.
Only the Army can stop the Humvees, the bulletproof ones. The police can't stop them. That's a fact. Only the Army can stop those Humvees. And those Humvees, the bullets they shoot will rip cop cars to pieces. And we already seen how the police run from the pimple face pump in Uvalde, Texas, who killed 22 children and 200 cops was hiding outside like some cowards. All he had was a little assault rifle. Now imagine a madman with some of this military equipment. There's nothing the police can do. See, the CIA should be ashamed of themselves, but we got to be very aware of what's going on right now.
8 machine gun vehicle mounts, 7 freestanding machine gun tripods, medical equipment, 40 pairs of binoculars.
Come on, bro.
What in the world?
You pull up in a crowd in that Humvee with that gun on top and just start shooting. The police can't stop you. You see? They have to call in air support and all that. They plan on turning America into a battlefield, bro.
What is going on here, people? What in the world is going on here? Who stole Humvees? But I got an alert. Apparently, 2 of these Humvees, 2 of the 3 have been recovered. There is a
the 2. Remember,
Twitter account.
Now, remember this. Remember they said 3 Humvees. One of them was armored, plated, and bulletproof. Then one of them had the mesh net doors. I guarantee you, the one that's armored and bulletproof still on the loose.
Called Ravenhawk that gave an update on these Humvees. Check it out right here. Nothing to see here, folks.
Family.
2 soft Humvees were recovered in Santa Ana and Orange on 1/11/2025.
I told you.
So that's yesterday.
Look, 2 soft Humvees. I told you. 1 armor Humvee and all the equipment are still missing. Bro, I already told me what? So the motherfucking Humvee that can't be stopped by any police officers, that's still on the lam. With all of them heavy weapons, that Humvee can pull up anywhere and take the whole police force, which they don't want to fight the police, but they want to kill the citizens. But, okay, think about what just happened in New Orleans, how the police came and shot the killer down. Shalom, family, salute. The police can't run up on this Humvee and do nothing at all but get their car ripped to shreds. This is very dangerous, and it's fucked up because I noticed the CIA.
1 armored Humvee and all equipment are still outstanding. And it references this, what we just heard here, the press report. This is crazy, folks. Why isn't this making national news about Humvees being stolen? That's a big
They got football games to play, man. You don't want it's too much. It's millions on the line. They don't want people not going to those football games now. They can't worry about a little terrorism from the CIA mess up the big bucks. This is disgusting, but this is the capitalistic society. Why don't you spend some of that money before you die? This is disgusting, man. This should be the #1 news story all over the airways. Military Humvee on the loose, military weapons. Only the Army can stop them. Come on, they talking about ISIS want to kill us.
Big deal, particularly if criminals get access to these military bases. What is a criminal doing with a stolen Humvee? What are people doing? Did they plant things on these Humvees? Are they stealing secrets, military secrets? Oh, but not a peep from the media. But you'll hear it here on JLR Investigates. We're trying to get an understanding of what's going on with these Humvees. But this is scary. Does it have anything to do with the fire that's going on south of there? I don't know. Could a terrorist now have a Humvee in their possession? And
yes,
is the feds investigating this? Department of Defense. Going on here. So we are paying attention to this particular damaging information that's out there, and it's scary that criminals can just break into Army Reserve places now and steal military equipment. Probably use the equipment against us, the U.S. citizens.
That's a fact.
California is a mess, considering that this happened in California, the fires, the mismanagement of, money dealing with the firefighting, and Newsom and Bass. It's just a complete mess in California. Bad year to start in California, to say the least. But if any information comes out about these Humvees, you'll hear it here on JLR Investigates. Sub to the channel, like it.
Zeke, you say they're not even running the story in California, man. They're not even putting the story out there. Military equipment stolen from California bases. Armored Humvee on the loose with high-powered military-grade weaponry. Nothing to play with. That's crazy. When I seen that, I said, oh, man, I need to go in and talk to my people because pretty soon they're going to say ISIS strikes in a military vehicle. Watch, that's coming. That's coming, bro. They're going to say, oh, we put the story out there that the military equipment had got stolen. See, they buried it. They buried the story, but it's out there. They buried the story, but it's out there. So later on, they did that when they always do that. Bury the story, then later on they say, see, it was out there that this was coming. That's bullshit.
This is Dabu 7. We have a heads up here on more wind incoming for the area of Southern California, the Los Angeles area, which at this point, it looks apocalyptic. All these areas burnt out, some 40,000 acres burnt out. And if we look back 3 days before this happened, they said that these 100-mile-an-hour winds were going to be hitting the area. At the same time, same day, the mayor was calling for $50 million in budget cuts, as they're saying over the TV that high winds are incoming. They're now saying again that these high winds are going to hit this region, and this puts a lot of areas at risk. They're now saying that Brentwood, Encino, Bel Air, among the many places here now added to the list that is threatened by these fires. Many people finding it very odd that you can see the footage of the trees burning everywhere, but when it comes to the houses in these neighborhoods, all the trees are still standing. And some people want to say, oh, because they're green. Well, that burns before metal melts. And some people just can't seem to wrap their head around common sense stuff here, like here.
When did you whip it?
And how did the fire get to houses in the first place? When we look at images where entire neighborhoods have been gutted, but look back here in the background. Look at all this back here. All the trees are still there. All of them. All of them. So how'd the fire get there?
Salute.
I kind of feel what Mel Gibson said was on point, that this was done on purpose. And we are in a war, ladies and gentlemen. This isn't going to stop. We need to keep raising awareness. Join me on the live streams where I talk about this in greater detail Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern. But y'all have a plan and be ready. This isn't going to stop, it seems, and this fire is far from over in this region. It's been Dabu.
Odd news stories, and as always, let's go ahead and get right into today's video. For those that have been subscribed to this channel for quite some time now, you will know that I have covered a certain magazine cover for quite some time. That magazine cover being the 2024 Economist magazine cover, which was created all the way back in November of 2023. This magazine cover was so accurate, and again, this has nothing to do with fortune telling or trying to predict the future, but this has everything to do with the so-called powers that be telling us what they are doing ahead of time. This is the so-called powers that be that are telling us their plans. But anyway, this magazine cover was so accurate that as soon as this cover came out, I made a video saying how Joe Biden would step down and be replaced by a female, and this female would run against Trump. And this was during a time when Joe Biden's own party was telling everybody that Joe Biden was fine. This is their guy. Joe Biden would definitely beat Trump. Months after this magazine cover had been created, Joe Biden steps down. His own party tells him he has to step down, and they run with Kamala Harris against Trump. But it wasn't just this. There were a couple other things I made videos on when it came to this magazine cover that came true, because again, this magazine cover happens to be very detailed, very accurate. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the 2025 Economist magazine cover, because the 2025 Economist magazine cover may have shown us something rather interesting when it comes to the Los Angeles fires. So let us go ahead and bring up the 2025 Economist magazine cover, which was created last year. And as soon as you bring up the cover, you will see something pretty interesting. At the very top, you will see what looks like to be a city. And behind the city to the right, you will see what looks like to be fire. And to the left of the city, you will see what looks like to be explosions. When this cover was released, I first thought this city was either New York or Philadelphia. But take a look at this video that was captured as these fires were raging and tell me, does this not look like what this magazine cover is showing us?
Never, ever, ever seen anything like this. I've been living here for 6 years. There's so much smoke that it is blocking the sun. You can actually see it. This is wild. See how dark it is over here. This is where the wildfire is, over in there. Crazy.
After seeing that video, there is no way that's a coincidence. I don't know who the original uploader is of that video. I'm sure there's a way to find out, but there are many, many people sharing that video on TikTok. When it comes to the city above the magazine cover, which now I believe to be Los Angeles, there also happens to be something pretty interesting above the city as well. If you take a look, you can see the planet Saturn. Matter of fact, the planet Saturn is attached directly to this city. And there are a lot of things we can talk about when it comes to Saturn. A lot of different theories revolve around this planet. Saturnalia, Saturn worship, Saturn being Satan, the black cube of Saturn. Like I said, there are a lot of things you can talk about when it comes to the planet Saturn. You had multiple musicians last year singing about Saturn. And look at this article here by the Daily Mail. This article is titled, "Is the Saturn Return the Ultimate Power in Hollywood? Emma Watson credits the planet for transforming her life, and she's far from the only star taking lessons from the great teacher," which is, to them anyway, Saturn, which inspired Gwen Stefani's music and prompted Adele's divorce. So yes, Saturn is big in Hollywood, but that's no surprise. But so is the concept known as Saturn's return. Saturn's return is all about change. Saturn's return to a lot of people is a major astrological event. Reading this definition here about Saturn's return, it says, a Saturn return is largely considered a period of significant life change and transformation, often associated with taking on more responsibility, re-evaluating your life path, and making necessary adjustments to reach a more mature and authentic version of yourself. Essentially, it's a time to grow up and confront areas where you need to evolve. So again, Saturn's return is very important to Hollywood. And if you take this definition here of Saturn's return, which is all about change, transforming, and evolving, and go back to the 2025 Economist magazine cover and taking a look at Saturn attached directly to this city, which is now believed to be Los Angeles, what are they trying to tell us here? You take a look at the fires and the explosions behind the city as well, and they are telling us that this city will be undergoing change, will be transforming, will be evolving, will be its better self, its more mature self. Taking this from this article here, it says, while fire isn't directly linked to a Saturn return in astrology, the concept of fire can be metaphorically used to describe the intense, transformative, and sometimes challenging nature of this astrological period, signifying a period of significant change and personal upheaval as you confront limitations and mature into a new phase of life, essentially experiencing a baptism by fire during your Saturn return. When it comes to the fires in Los Angeles, people have made a very big connection to something else. People connected these fires to the Smart City LA 2028, which is turning Los Angeles into just that, a smart city, transforming Los Angeles. Los Angeles will be turning into a smart city. A great change will be overtaking Los Angeles, and they will be doing so by fire. We also saw about 2 months ago a sacrifice by fire as well, a house fire in Los Angeles when it came to a Rothschild, and how we knew that story was very fishy because they let us know that it took exactly 33 minutes to put out the fire, not approximately 30 minutes or a half an hour. No, it was exactly 33 minutes, which was also a pretty odd story. When news first broke out about this Rothschild passing away in this mysterious house fire in Los Angeles, they said the individual was 87, but it came out he was much younger. His name was Will Rothschild, I guess being confused with another William Rothschild who is said to have owned this home. Just again, a very odd story. And it had all the smells of a ritualistic sacrifice by fire in Los Angeles. The motto for Smart LA 2028 is what? Technology for a better Los Angeles. You can't make this up. They had shown us on this magazine cover. Saturn is the icon that represents change, and you can see the fire and the explosion right next to the city. These magazine covers never fail. They never, ever fail. What also happens to be pretty interesting is that if you take a look at the magazine cover to the left, you will see a woman's face. You will see Ursula von der Leyen, who happens to be the European Commission president. News has come out after these fires in Los Angeles that Ursula has been in the hospital battling severe pneumonia. The most recent update was 2 days ago that she was in the hospital for a week battling pneumonia. But going back to the Los Angeles fires and the 2025 Economist magazine cover, months before this magazine cover had come out, I had shared this video many times on this channel involving Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab, the World Economic Forum chairman, who I believe is the ex-chairman now, but he was on camera saying how Los Angeles, he heard that Los Angeles by 2030 would be private car driven free.
We meet for the 20th. I hope I will have pleasure still to be invited for the meeting. When we meet for the 20th Governors Summit, you will use the app like Uber, but not anymore to call some driver, but automatically guided car, a self-driven car, will come to your hotel or wherever you are and will bring you to the airport. No, Los Angeles is one of the cities with the heaviest traffic, who told me in 2030, Los Angeles will be private car driven free. And this will allow to transform highways into parks and other public spheres.
This is a great video by The Truth Is on TikTok, and he goes even further explaining just how Hollywood worships Saturn.
These celebrities have all been worshiping Saturn right in front of you the entire time. Let's take a look at many of these celebrities showing their alliance to the code of Saturn. Back in 2017, Katy Perry did a performance where she was floating on a giant Saturn planet, clearly showing her alliance to the pagan god. She also went and got a Saturn tattoo on her wrist, marking herself with the symbol of the god. Lady Gaga wore a Saturn headpiece to the Ellen DeGeneres show. Saturn is often depicted having rings around the planet, with it having 7 main inner rings. This is what Gaga is depicting with this headpiece. It's the same that she's depicting with the outfit she wore for this SNL skit back in 2009. Kim Kardashian also wore a Saturn outfit, displaying Saturn's rings. Beyonce did the same, wearing a Saturn ring outfit while also wearing Saturn-themed rings, the same Saturn earrings that Adele was wearing during this performance. Adele also has Saturn tattooed on her arm, just like Miley Cyrus and Kesha. Miley Cyrus has Saturn tattooed on her arm, and Kesha has it on her hand. These earrings that Beyonce and Adele were wearing were both created by the designer and open occultist Vivienne Westwood. Vivienne Westwood is heavy into Saturn worship. Vivienne's brand logo is literally Saturn. In the 90s, she released her witch collection full of occult imagery. A lot of her designs are directly tied to pagan Saturn worship. Ariana Grande is big into Saturn worship as well. She has dropped 2 songs directly tied to her worship of Saturn. Her massive hit song, 7 Rings, is a direct reference to the 7 main rings of Saturn we spoke about earlier. She also released a song called Saturn's Return Interlude.
But it's not just Hollywood, it's not just celebrities, it's also big corporations who always use Saturn in their logos. And this is a great video that comes from What in the World 7770 on TikTok. And she goes over all of these companies that use Saturn in their logos.
Let's go over all of the Saturn symbolism in all of these businesses and corporations and fast food restaurants. Let's go. You gotta think for yourself and ask yourself, why do they use this so much? It's obviously a reason. Look, the NASA symbol, it's got the Saturn rings around it. It's also got that reptilian tongue. E for the internet, Wi-Fi, Nike, that's also the Saturn rings. There's Intel, Bud Light, Nissan, Earthlink, Target, Universal Studios. The actual, like, come on, people. Burger King, Whirlpool, Sega Saturn, Nissan, Capital One, Toyota. It is in everything. There's just a few up close. Now, you might ask, why do they use these symbols in everything? Well, take a look at the people that are in control of them. And also do a little bit of research on Saturn and the Saturn cube cult and all of those things, and that will answer your question. I have a couple of videos about that if you would like to watch.
Saturn is greatly worshipped, and again, is seen throughout Hollywood, is seen throughout many of these corporations and so forth. So it's definitely not a coincidence that we are seeing Saturn's return, this big change, taking above the city, which is Los Angeles. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel,
LA fires always seem to hit specific areas.
Call me a conspiracy theorist, but I do not believe that this much fire in the past week is a natural cause or climate change or anything like that. You know what California is known for? For the most expensive houses in the United States. The area that's burning right now, it is on average of $3.5 million. $3.5 million. And guess what? This fire is the best solution for what? The best solution for cheap land, cheap houses for people to buy.
Here's a wild theory. Some people believe it's not just nature at work. What if certain locations are being cleared for new high-tech developments or secret projects? Think about it. Prime real estate suddenly becomes cheaper after a fire. Some even claim satellite technology could be used to start pinpointed fires. Could this be a modern land grab disguised as a natural disaster?
I've noticed something a bit strange about these LA fires everyone's been tagging me. The first weird thing that I noticed is that insurance companies dropped fire coverage 3 months before the fire started. And many people have reported electrical wires from the power grid causing these fires. And of course, the water supply has been cut off. And don't you think it's a bit weird in this picture that all of the trees stay standing, but the houses aren't? Of course, this is for educational purposes only, and I'm not claiming anything. And then we go to Google and type in 2028 Smart LA City. What a coincidence they want to build a smart city in LA. And of course, it's a lot easier to build a whole city if there's no buildings there. Of course, this is just for educational purposes only, and I hope everyone is safe over there. Thank you.
Due to current events, I figured now would be a great time to tell you guys all about Smart LA 2028. Smart LA 2028 was a plan released in 2019 to redefine and restructure Los Angeles in time for the 2028 Olympics.
It's like Lahana. It's like Lahana all over again, what they did in Hawaii.
Smart LA 2028 has many key points, one primarily being the transportation infrastructure to go for a car-free Olympics. Don't just take it from me, however, take it from Ted Ross, the Chief Information Officer of LA.
As a 3-time United States Digital City Award winner, the city of Los Angeles has been investing in the infrastructure, the apps, and the data tools to be a globally recognized smart city. But as technology evolves, so our smart city must evolve too. That's why we have developed our Los Angeles Smart City Strategy, known as Smart LA 2028. Check it out here.
Key points that they're looking to improve are infrastructure and community engagement, which may be hard since there's no community anymore. Some constraints on this project are funding and budget constraints because infrastructure is very important and very expensive. And piggybacking off that, another hurdle is the aging infrastructure. Much of LA's infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and utility grids, were built decades ago and requires significant upgrades or replacement. They're going to have to replace a lot now. With that comes retrofitting challenges. Adapting existing systems to modern standards is often more complicated and costly than building new infrastructure. How about that? It would be cheaper for them to just build new infrastructure instead of repair and fix the old. Traffic congestion. A lot of people living in LA means a lot of traffic. I guess it's kind of weird that a lot of people won't be living in LA now. Environmental concerns, because a lot of residents mean high carbon emissions from cars and high water usage, which we know LA is already struggling with the water usage because the firefighters said that there's no water to put out the fires right now. The hydrants are running dry. And as we know, wildfires are a big environmental concern. Regulatory and bureaucratic hurdles are a big concern as well because, you know, it's going to be hard getting things approved when there's so many people living and working in LA. And stakeholder coordination. But I guess it's really not going to be that hard to convince people to fix a city that no longer exists. You're just building from the ground up, right? It's hard to get equity and public support because of gentrification concerns. Infrastructure improvements can lead to displacement in lower income communities, creating opposition to certain projects. But I guess there's not going to be much opposition now. And the digital divide. Technological integration, because integrating smart sensors to existing infrastructure is very complex. But again, I guess there's now not much infrastructure to have to work with. And public transit challenges, because with everybody living in LA, converting everybody to public transit was an uphill battle. And project timelines were under constraints because so many people live and work in LA. I guess it's lived and worked in LA. Now that you mention it, I'm actually pretty sure that Lahaina was going through the same thing and faced the same issues, right? What a coincidence.
So basically, this is going to be the big land grab in California history. It's so overcrowded in Los Angeles that for the last few years, they've been putting homeless people on buses and shipping them out hours away to surrounding counties. It's still not enough. All the new major tech, entertainment, and social media companies want their headquarters in Los Angeles around all the content creators, all the entertainers, celebrities, where everything is trendy. If you think these people who are homeless, losing their homes and businesses, is about to go back to that land and just rebuild and start their lives over, you're tripping. You don't know how it works. These insurance companies that are dropping them, they're successful because they do the same thing all big businesses do. That's one major company own multiple companies that own companies that own companies. So if they ever mess a bunch of people over or get into trouble, you only can sue that one company, not the major company. They'll just file for bankruptcy and you won't affect the CEO's money or none of that. But back on track to this land grab, they're going to start offering people checks, reminding them that they can just go get a new house, new car, and new furniture instead of waiting 5 to 7 years to go to court with these insurance companies to try to get them to pay you out for dropping you during hard times in a natural disaster. You think they're not going to take that check? Don't be silly. This is a land grab, and it's just happening right here in front of our eyes. I'll be the first to tell you this.
Together this incredible animation that shows the timeline of how this fire advanced through the communities of Pacific Palisades and Malibu. Here it is, January 7th at 6:17. It was at 2,900 acres. And then on January 8th, that explosion to 15,000 acres. And then the next day, 17,000 acres as it progressed into the mountains. And then on the 9th, 19,000 acres. And you can see how far it had gotten into Malibu. And then we come to yesterday at 20,000 acres. And you can see 20 and then to 21,000 acres. But you see how far across it spread, and all the way up to the 11th, which is today at 22,660 acres. This is just information from 7:30 a.m. today.
This is literally the end of Los Angeles, California. This like feels so much bigger than what it is right now. Like the fact that now that it's in Hollywood, it's in the Hollywood Hills. Runyon Canyon, historic Runyon Canyon is on fire. Is like breaking my heart to pieces. But also it's like, this is like all of LA. Like it is going down. And wow. Like it feels like bigger. Like, I don't know. I know there's a lot of conspiracies, and I'm not saying that it's like, I mean like bigger, like the universe. Like it's almost like it feels like God is angry, and this is like all the dark versus the light, and all the dark that is Hollywood is like just being taken down. Like Diddy went down this year. Like it just feels like the energy. It's like we're not making any progress here. This is like bigger. Does anyone else feel that? Like it's very disheartening. Like this feels, I like said it kind of joking yesterday, like, oh, this is like the apocalypse, the end of it. But like it literally feels like it. Like I don't even know what to say. I'm just like in shock right now. I'm just like watching my city burn down. And it's still 0% contained. And I have just packed up my car. So now I'm leaving. I don't know where I'm going yet, but we're going to figure it out. But like, this is heavy. This is heavy. This is big. Because it feels like no one wants us to win. Like no one wants us to win. You know, it's like everything is against us right now. And I said it last night. It's like, we're LA. We should be able to handle this. And we're not. And in fact, when we just kind of start to a little bit, a fire breaks out somewhere else. Like it's, the world is against us. God is angry. The universe is against us. Like I feel that so heavy, and I want to know if anyone else feels it. And my heart is just like breaking right now. Breaking. Like this is the end. Like this feels like the end. I'm being very dramatic, but like, do you know, you feel it too. Like this is crazy.
I was going to say, did you?
My heart.
Is this or will it be the worst natural disaster in the history of the United States? I think it will be in terms of just the costs associated with it, in terms of the scale and scope. I'll don't need to remind the folks in California where the Tubbs fire, 5,600 houses were lost. And of course, Camp Fire, we had 18,000 housing units lost and 85 people that lost their lives. Currently, we're getting confirmation from the coroner. So we always have to be careful on the death toll, but it's in the 13 range. And I've got search and rescue teams out. We've got cadaver dogs out, and there's likely to be a lot.
2 days later, the LA fires. The Department of Justice just released a 186-page report detailing how systemic and calculated the Tulsa massacre was that we have been taught all of our lives for the past 104 years since it happened, that it was just the mob violence, that it was just angry attackers, angry rioters. And we're finally finding out that no, this was actually very systemic and very calculated, to the point where they have police deputizing people within 30 minutes. I'm just saying everything was extremely calculated, and in these LA fires, how unprecedented they are and how widespread they were, and how in the midst of that fire, one of the historically Black neighborhoods was burned to a crisp. I'm gonna just say this, and y'all can call.
So does anyone else think it's weird that like the fires are completely surrounding the valley? Like that's where we are, but like we're completely surrounded by fires. Like if these did spread bigger, like how would we get out? Where would we go? We are not being told to evacuate as of yet, but it's like, should we go? It's also just a weird coincidence that like the entire valley is surrounded. Like,
on today's episode of That's Grits, we got Los Angeles wildfires. I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I want to know, where the hell are wildfires coming from? Just look at some of these images. These look like straight out of a movie, but these are real. You're telling me we can send billions of dollars to Ukraine to fight a war, but we don't have the resources to stop a wildfire before it burns down an entire part of a city? And we've been dealing with wildfires for a long time,
Oh,
especially in the state of California and places like Canada and all that stuff. PS5 is about to release technology that can make you smell what's in the game, but we haven't invented something to stop wildfires. There's no way. I know I'm ignorant. I'm being ignorant to something. I know, you know, the wind, it's hard to control all that extra shit, but there's no way we haven't invented something that can stop a wildfire before it gets this bad. You can't convince me. This has to be some shit where they're trying to burn down a whole city and claim the land, like reclaim land, bro. You can't convince me, bro. We have too much technology for us not to be able to stop a wildfire from getting like this. Bro, we have the capabilities of building atomic weapons that can take down an entire country with a press of a button, but we can't stop wildfires. Yeah, that's cap. That's grits. You can't convince. Prayers up to everybody in LA and everybody that's
And see, for the past few days, I've been mad at myself because I never knew that LA had these black historical neighborhoods until now, until it's burning down, until it's burning to ashes. But see, that's why I love TikTok, because I saw this video on TikTok of this woman, her parents' home burned down. So I started asking her about Eaton, about Altadena, and she told me this: the historic significance of Black African American Altadena and Pasadena is long-standing, if not a century or more. All of our homes that our grandparents bought after the Civil Rights Act and the Fair Housing Act are gone. The history of what these homes meant to our families who left the Jim Crow South during the Great Migration and came to LA for new opportunities is special. Altadena, Pasadena is the only place many Black families were able to buy homes because of redlining. So I put her TikTok up here, and I also put the GoFundMe information because, you know, I told her I'd do that for her family. But it was crazy because I always knew about the Great Migration, because a lot of our people from the South, from Mississippi, from Louisiana, they went to California, they went to New York, they went to Chicago, they went to Massachusetts, they went to a lot of different places in the North and mainly to California. But I never knew we had neighborhoods, you know, where we can buy homes and stuff like that. I never even heard of these neighborhoods until now. But I'm about to get into this article because I always love to watch the news and see what they project to the people, what they would rather show the people. And all I'm seeing them showing is a lot of Caucasian people crying. They talking about celebrities. They not showing no Black families for real, for real. They not showing the FBA. They not showing our people on the news and what they really going through. You will see it on social media, you know, our people lost everything and stuff like that. But when you look on the news, they not showing that. So let's get right into this article. So I found this article called Blavity. Altadena, a historic Black neighborhood in Los Angeles, faces catastrophic wildfire damage. As wildfires continue to ravage Los Angeles, historic Black neighborhoods are experiencing catastrophic damage. In Altadena, one of the city's historic Black communities, a 66-year-old man tragically died while attempting to save his family home of 55 years. The wildfires are also exacerbating health issues from Black residents in these neighborhoods, many of whom already suffer from asthma and other respiratory conditions. And this is why I love my channel, because the stuff the news not talking about, that's what I want to talk about. And they not talking about for real, for real. They not talking about our people. You see them on the news, they give it whole storylines to these Caucasian families. And I have nothing against these people because they all lost everything. But when it comes to my people, we have to also tell their story too. But imagine having a home for 55 years and in minutes it's gone. Even the Altadena Senior Center is gone, full of flames, it's gone. And I heard no one talking about that on the major news networks. And then I was just sitting back, I'm like, wait, did these people plan this? Because this is too strategically done. Each city, each county, whatever, it's too strategic. It's like they hitting the buildings, the homes they really want to hit. So these people had these homes since the 1930s, 1940s. You telling me now, this week, the last few days, is finally burning up? It's a coincidence? It's no coincidence. These people are setting these fires on purpose to move in the smart city technology, to move in for the Olympics, to get rid of evidence they trying to hide. That's what these people are doing. In addition to the loss of homes,
Revolutionary salute to LRP for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Appreciate the love, family. Salute.
fires have destroyed cherished Black-owned churches, restaurants, and cultural institutions in Altadena. A significant challenge for residents is the lack of adequate insurance coverage. Many major insurance providers do not offer fire insurance in Altadena, leaving residents relying on California's basic insurance plan. The limited coverage makes it difficult for many families to afford the cost of rebuilding. And see, that's why I say they want to get rid of TikTok, because how can these insurance companies, knowing it's fires, how can these insurance companies just pull out? How can these insurance companies imagine paying insurance for all these decades? Imagine paying insurance for all these years, and all of a sudden they pull out from under you. All of a sudden they say, oh no, we deny that. Like, what's the point of insurance? It's all a scam. But they want to call this person a terrorist. They want to call this person a criminal. The real criminals are these insurance people who can get away with this. And I fear they're going to do our people dirty, because you got to look at it. They don't want our people prospering. They don't want you to have a home for 70 years that you've been keeping up on, that you've been taking care of, and this family member lived there, the next generation of your family lived there, the next generation, because that's all I've been seeing on TikTok and Altadena. That's why I'm like, damn, I'm just finding out. Bro, these people are so amazing. It's like one generation lives in the house, the next generation lives in the house. I'm like, damn, that's real family. That's how it's really supposed to be. And to learn about this, to learn about our FBA family members, to learn about our people while it's burning, that's just crazy. While national media coverage has largely focused on the destruction of million-dollar homes in affluent Los Angeles neighborhood, the Cochran firm and its partners are bringing attention to the severe impact underserved Black communities. Many of these homes that were burned in the fires were not insured for fire disaster, whether due to insurance companies recently canceling thousands of fire insurance policies or homeowners not securing fire insurance because it was not required with a mortgage, the organizers shared. So basically, they set our people up. If it's not required in the mortgage, they set our people up. And even if they did get it, their insurance companies pulled out. So this country tells you to get a job, work hard, retire, get a home, just so they can finesse you with these insurance companies. And look, I made this video to highlight what's going on in our community, because like I said, on the national news, you're not going to see them talking to our people. You might see them talking to one for a short period of time, but you're not going to see them really get to the details, because they can't show you that part. They got to show you the celebrities. They got to show you, the Malibu. They got to show you all the tourist area. They got to show you all that BS. They're not going to show you our people that came from the South, after war, that came from the South during the Great Migration. They not gonna show you that, because they don't want our people to learn that type of history. So that's why I say they have to get rid of TikTok. I found this information out on TikTok. I went to the source. This her mother and her dad home burnt down. And if you go on TikTok, just put in Altadena, and I promise you, it's going to be so many videos of people homes burning down. And then you had one man said the firefighters never came to even try to help. The ambulance never came to try to help. Even the chief firefighter said they were pulling up to the fire hydrants and wasn't any water in it. And look, we don't know whether to believe them or not, because all these people are about are their jobs and their politics. That's it. All I'm trying to save face. They playing politician games while people going through real life situations, they blaming each other. Everybody pointing the finger, but nobody solving anything, because I told you it's all about money. It's not about fixing anything. And now everything is blowing up literally in their face. They plan all this to happen, but it's not going the way they expect it to happen. Now they point fingers at each other. Now they lying on each other. It's all about politics. It's all about games. But when it comes to our people, we have to stick to our people. So if y'all want to send GoFundMe, like I say, do your homework first. Don't just be sending money to anybody. But if y'all want to help our people, cool, because as Black people, especially FBA, our people, we have to stick together, because these people don't have our back. Through crisis, whatever, we have to stick together. And rest in peace to all the people in Altadena, all our people that lost their lives. And to the people that lost their homes, you lost your memories, you lost all your pictures, you lost your cars, you lost everything. Look, you are not alone. We have your back. I'm out.
Been so much news coming out about a variety of things, but we have got to get into more of what's happening in California with these wildfires. I have a series of videos I'm about to do, specifically one with Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, smiling in near sheer glee, talking about the devastation that has happened in California. I am telling you, it is psychopathic. Like, she literally is smiling like the Joker, excited about people suffering and losing their homes. And then there's also Gavin Newsom, who's running away from people's questions, telling Biden that we need more censorship. And then he's doing a video in front of a green screen, pretending that he's in the midst of what's going on. I mean, it's deranged. But I want to show you this video. I came across it because it's going viral. Now, it's 2 years old, and it's from a channel called A Perfect Union, More Perfect Union. And they do some really good work just investigating different things. I think the first time I watched them, I can't remember, but I know recently I was looking at them because they did a whole investigation into United Healthcare, and that's where I actually pulled a lot of information. So they whatever it is, they are for the people. They try to expose corruption and politicians and billionaires and companies that, stories that you're not going to hear on the mainstream. Because why? We know mainstream is beholden to these corporations. That's how they make any money, by their sponsors. These people, these are the ones who fund the news. They fund the media. So they have no incentive to report on these stories. And not just an incentive, not having an incentive. They go out of their way. They are told they are not allowed to report on these things because it negatively affects their bottom dollar. But let's get into this, because this is about the billionaire couple. You know how there's a shortage of water right now in California to put out these wildfires? Like, this is the place. Okay, California has more wildfires than anywhere else in the US. But somehow, not only do they have a shortage of firefighters, fire trucks in the budgets, but the shortage of water. And it's not just, yes, they've cut back and they've done this. It is more insidious than this. There is a billionaire couple that owns most of the water in California. This is going to blow your mind. Guys, make sure you're going to realmelanieking.com, picking up some merch. Of course, I'm going to insert that later, but I want to get into this video. Be prepared.
While 40 million Californians suffer through unprecedented drought, one billionaire couple owns a massive share of the state's water system, seized in a series of secretive meetings 2 decades ago. That system was largely paid for by the very taxpayers whose water these billionaires hold hostage. Urban water systems are desperate for water, but in 2023, they'll receive just 5% of what they requested from the state. The Resnicks are the biggest farmers in California. As of 2007, they owned 4 San Francisco's worth of farmland. And nearly half of Americans buy at least one of their products. Their pistachios, their pomegranate juice, their mandarins, their flowers. It's all under one massive umbrella, the Wonderful Company, a privately owned company worth at least $5 billion. The majority owners, the Resnicks, are worth at least $8 billion. How were they able to take over such a large percentage of what should be a shared public resource? This is The Classroom from More Perfect Union, and today we're looking at how the Resnicks got rich. Linda is a former child actress, the daughter of Jack Harris, a successful movie distributor of the 1950s, most well known for The Blob.
Starring Steve McQueen and a cast of exciting young people.
At 19, she founded her own advertising agency. Stewart was born to a middle-class New Jersey family and started his first business, a janitorial service, in grad school. He eventually acquired American Protection Services, a burglar alarm and security company. Linda approached him about marketing services for the company, and they hit it off, not knowing that one day they'd work together to take over California's water. The lovebirds became business partners. They bought Teleflora, the flower delivery company, and the Franklin Mint, purveyors of inane little tchotchkes. Linda was the marketing person, and Stewart was in charge of business. As Linda told the LA Times in 1993, "I've always said that Stewart and I together make one perfect person, like little salt and pepper shakers." In the late 80s, they found their primary industry, agriculture. They got into the pistachio business. Linda said, "We've done more for the pistachio than anyone ever since it was planted in the Garden of Eden. My husband should be canonized for all the work he's done." They started branching into other products, almonds, pomegranates, citrus, wine, and acquiring more and more land to cover it, including some very important land in Kern County, which granted them water rights in the area. As the Resnicks were building their empire, the state of California was building new water infrastructure with taxpayer money. California's natural water supply is very inconsistent. Vastly differing amounts of rainfall means the state can go from surplus to drought and back very easily. So they build water banks to store water during surpluses to have during droughts. One important storage facility is the Kern Water Bank, started in 1988. The facility was built with hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, which could have been a good thing. The people of California would have owned the water. But there were 2 Californians thirstier than the rest, and they wanted more water: Linda and Stewart Resnick, and they had a lot of political power. We'll get to that. In 1994, state water officials, water infrastructure contractors, and agricultural landowners with water rights arranged a secretive meeting at a resort in Monterey Bay, California. These groups, a mix of private companies and public agencies, rewrote California's water rules without any input from voters, taxpayers, or legislators. The new rules, called the Monterey Plus Agreement or the Monterey Amendments, were devastating for working Californians, and great for agriculture billionaires. The original code included urban preference, a long-standing rule that in times of drought, the state water board would give urban areas, where people live, access to water supplies before agricultural interests. Monterey axed that. That means that in times of drought, the water systems for normal Californians would have to buy water from private companies because they weren't getting it from the state. The new agreement also loosened regulations on paper water. That's water that doesn't necessarily exist anywhere but on paper. The full quantities of water that providers could have, but don't actually need to have. Today, 5 times as much water has been promised and sold as actually exists. And importantly, the meeting changed ownership of the Kern Water Bank. What once belonged to the state was transferred to a few private water contractors, one of which was Westside Mutual, a wholly owned subsidiary of Wonderful Foods. The wonderful employee who runs Westside, Bill Phillimore, is the chairman of the public organization that manages the Kern Water Bank. Boom. One secret meeting, and the Resnicks owned nearly 60% of an important California water resource, built with hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money. The new ownership, combined with the rules on paper and surplus water, meant that during times of drought, the Resnicks could sell Kern water back to the state water systems. They took Californian taxpayers' water and sold it back to them, both literally as the water supply and also to grow expensive food like gourmet pistachios and pomegranate juice. They converted the people's water into products many can't afford. And that's just one water bank. The Resnicks also have control of other water boards and have been sued for directing more water towards their properties. So how do they get away with this Chinatown level?
Let's just stop for a second. What? What? So the taxpayers have funded these water reservoirs, but then now they are owned by this company, by this couple, and they have to buy their own water back, their own resources. So while the taxpayers of California have to reserve water during droughts, they're not allowed to, water their lawns. It's all this regulation, that's supposed to be friendly for the environment. That's how they push it. That's how Gavin Newsom and the Democrats there who run California. Remember after the election, they were all talking about, we want to make California its own country. We want to annex California. Gavin Newsom talking about how he's going to fight Trump and all this, that, and the other. Meanwhile, they're not taking care of the basic needs of the state. They're having the people suffer on a daily basis with not having water. But then when you see these crises, it's like, well, who gives a damn about all of that? We need to line the pockets of our donors. We need to line the pockets of these corporations. So now people are paying attention, and it's amazing. These celebrities and all these, very prominent Democrats who hate Trump, hate Republicans. They're trying to destroy, and we need to be our own country, and they're going to all flee the U.S. Now they're begging and crying and where's the water? What's happening and all that? They didn't want to listen before. And some people say, well, don't make it political. It is political. And this is the reason why.
Chicanery.
Going to be a lot of irate citizens when they find out that they're paying for water that they're not going to get.
With philanthropy. The Resnicks donate millions of dollars to politicians and research institutions, which help them secure control over water systems, and even get more water and more taxpayer funding. One important project is the proposed California Delta Tunnel, a taxpayer-funded project which would send water from Northern California to Central, where the Resnicks farms are. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on state and federal legislation and politicians who support the tunnel project. But their favorite politician is Senator Dianne Feinstein.
You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway.
Chair of the Energy and Water Subcommittee. She's a close personal friend of the Resnicks, attending their holiday parties in Aspen and maintaining their financial interests. A quick look through the bills she sponsored shows several which would direct money to Kern-adjacent water projects. The Resnicks even ask her for things directly. When a pesky study about endangering salmon and shad fisheries threatened the Delta Tunnel, Stewart wrote a letter to Feinstein demanding a new study. She immediately forwarded it to the Obama administration, who agreed to spend $750,000 on a new study. It returned the same results as the first one. Can't buy science. But the Resnicks have tried. They are among the top donors to the University of California system, with their donations focusing on agricultural and ecological studies. The Resnicks have basically bought entire departments who put out studies on how water systems should be managed, and where funding should go. That leads to even more federal and state taxpayer dollars being used to fix up what the Resnicks profit off of. This is all bad for California, even in a capitalistic sense. Agriculture uses 80% of California's water, but only represents 2% of its GDP. The Resnicks' water monopoly is just one way their quest for wealth hurts the rest of us. They allegedly lobby for increased tensions with Iran to keep embargoes on superior Iranian pistachios. Their giant crops lead to monocultures which kill important pollinators. They siphon taxpayer dollars into the company town charter schools they own, set up to train children to work for their farms. And of course, like any company of this size, they exploit their workers. We need to treat water for what it is: a necessary public resource, a human right, and something that shouldn't be owned by anyone, and work towards legislative change that stops people like the Resnicks from stealing it. Thank you for watching.
So Dianne Feinstein died. Okay, so she's dead. She's long gone. And I was actually looking up, because I don't pay attention to California politics that much, but there was a woman named LaFonza Romanique Butler. She succeeded her, Dianne Feinstein, once she's died, but she's no longer in office. I believe she was voted out. So now, guess who it is? Let me show you who's the new snake in the grass. And I was not ready to do this, but I'm gonna show you. While California is shit out of luck, because this is who now took over for her. Let me make it so you guys can see it. Hold on, there we go. Adam Schiff, the devil himself, the slimy sleazeball degenerate, Adam Schiff. Has he done anything about this? This falls on his shoulders. December 8th is when he assumed office. He's had time to go in there and make sure that California has water, that the people there have what they need. Has he done that? Would he ever do that? Absolutely not. Because we know he's another one of these slime balls from California. Why is California has the scummiest politicians? You got Gavin Newsom. You got Kamala Harris. You had Dianne Feinstein. And now you got this idiot up there. And all of them are about their special interests. So if you want to know why California is burning to the ground, listen, we can't just blame Karen Bass. I mean, she's going to get this work in my next video. We can't just blame Gavin Newsom. You know, he's going to get the work. But California, look at what you just voted in. The same. He is probably worse than Dianne Feinstein, who now are greasing their pockets because she was their point person. She was the person that got everything done for them. And so anybody who comes into office next, they need someone who's going to be on their team. You're going to tell me if we look through the records, they aren't major donors to Adam Schiff. They made sure he got in there so they can keep hogging all this water that belongs to the people of California. Why don't you hear Gavin Newsom call them out? Why don't you hear Karen Bass call them out? Why don't you hear Biden or any of the other Democrats say a damn thing about this? While the people suffer, people have lost their homes. The devastation in California, it looks like Baghdad. It looks like a bombed out. I mean, it is just complete destruction. Let me show you. So while we're here, make sure you guys are following me on X. I have it up here in the corner. It's kind of hard to see. I'll move it over for a second. Real Melanie King. The link is below in the description box. Some people said they didn't know how to, just wasn't working for them. A lot of people don't know X like that. I've literally just really got onto X like that, like the past month and a half. So I understand, but follow me there because even with the things that I have been breaking and talking about, specifically that whole Candace Owens thing and her getting that 100-page threatening letter from the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, because of the BS with his wife. Mr. and Mr. Macron is what Candace is calling them. I don't care if you don't like Candace Owens. This is a sitting president of a foreign nation that is threatening an American citizen because he doesn't want evidence to come out about his wife being born with a dick. Like I know I have to say it like that, guys, because a lot of people just aren't paying attention. Whose business is it? It doesn't matter, this, that, and the other. And it's going to matter. Just like it wouldn't matter about these billionaires having all this water. You didn't know about it. The media didn't tell you. But it's independent people, independent journalists, independent people who are trying to bring you this information. It all matters. It's all connected. It's all connected. Okay, they all grease each other's pockets. But look at that. Let's look at it again. Turn this music off. But this was just driving through the wildfires. Absolutely insane. And let me see if I can pull up the actual of the devastation that's there. Hold on. So the Pacific Palisades, let me just see, wildfire Pacific. It should pull it up. What is this? Okay, there's no water to fight the wildfire in Los Angeles. Just a reminder that California voters approved a ballot measure to have more water storage built, and Gavin Newsom still hasn't done it. As a result, millions of gallons of snow melt and rain pour into the Pacific Ocean. There's another place your water's going, California. You still want to become your own country? You still, and I'm not speaking to the voters. I am not speaking to the people. Okay, I'm speaking to really the Democrats there, the liberals there, the machine that's there, the politicians that have spun everything. We need to kumbaya and hold each other's hand, and Trump is mean, and what happened to decency? Yeah, what the hell happened to decency? See, this is how they trick the people. Like they're saying mean things, and Trump is a 34 count felon. You telling me felons, crooks that haven't been running California all this time? See, that's how they get you. That's how they get you away from the issues, the things that matter to the people. We need to be woke and what are your pronouns? So while they're busy fighting pronoun wars and we need tampons in boys' bathrooms, this is what's happening. Kamala Harris didn't do anything about it when she was there, and she damn sure isn't going to do anything else now that she claims she's going to run in California. Good luck, sis. But so these are, what does this say here? It says, who's going to jail over this? The 117 million gallon Santa Ynez Reservoir in Pacific Palisades, a key part of LA's water system, was empty for repairs. During the wildfire that destroyed thousands of homes, guys, there are so many coincidences. So many coincidences. I think in my next video, I'm going to do that because I'm looking at the timer now. The clock is still running on this one, so I'm taking too long. But we have got to get into the details. When you see how many things are just not adding up, and how they're supposed to have this smart city by 2028 because they've got to get ready for the Olympics. I was in California over the summer, and I went there. I haven't been to California. I haven't been to LA in a couple years. And I would usually go to LA for business or things like that. Go to Disneyland for the kids, that stuff. But I was there. I was like, damn. LA is ratchet. Like, it's not popping. I went to Calabasas. I went to Malibu. I was staying in Beverly Hills because, your girl's a little bougie. And I was like, this ain't it. It was not, the food wasn't good. The city, it looked run down. I went to Venice Beach. It smelled like piss. There was poop on the ground. Even in Beverly Hills, it was just, I was like, why would anyone want to be here? And then you see the government structure. It is an absolute disaster. I just want to insert this really quickly before I get on to my next video. Guys, I'm actually thinking about live streaming, just doing one big live stream. I'm thinking I would do it at night versus the morning. So I would capture all the news during the day, and then at night I would do it. Or do I do it in the morning?
Hey, what's up, guys? How y'all doing today? Well, baby, if your name is Sean Diddy Combs, oh my God, the pressure is getting worse. Do y'all know that Sean Diddy Combs is now being implicated by a former Bush worker? President Bush. Somebody that was on his staff is now implicating Diddy. And guess what? They're saying that those fires might be a little bit suspicious because any evidence that was in that house, Diddy's house actually burnt down. Y'all, let's get into this. And maybe this ain't no conspiracy theory. Let's get into this. But let me actually say this, right? When I heard that the fires were happening, and I'm going to do a lot more videos about it because there's a lot going on. When I heard that the fires were happening, I was like, wait a second. I know Diddy happy. Why? Not because evidence was burned up, because I believe the feds went all up and through there and videotaped every little inch and probably made several visits back. That's why none of the kids are living in the LA mansion, okay? But I was like, wait a second. Wait a second. I know Diddy's happy because prior to this fire, Diddy couldn't get a seller for the mansion. Diddy couldn't give anybody to even give his mansion a second look. However, now that fire happened, insurance is going to pay out. Hey, what's up, y'all? Pause. What's up, y'all? This is Teacher Tisa talking to y'all. We have just checked, and it seems like Diddy actually does have the worst luck on earth. Guess what? His house did not burn down, y'all. Diddy was probably the only one in the California area praying that his house will burn down. And guess what? It is still standing tall. Look at God's glory. That's right, Diddy. In case the feds need any new evidence, they know directly where to go. And baby, guess what? We truly love to see it. Anyway, let's get back into the video. Keep in mind, Diddy's house has been untouched while all his neighbor houses burned. Woo! Let's go. But then I did a little research, and you guys know that everybody canceled their fire insurance in California. Well, I'm sorry, the insurance companies canceled everybody's fire insurance. Now, oddly enough, the California legislation is pushing back saying that's illegal. You can't do that. We'll see what happens, right? But there was such a thing as private fire insurance. That's when you paid a very high premium. And I'm not going to lie, when this first happened, I said, did Diddy set those fires? Because I know he needs that money for that mansion. It doesn't matter, because words on the street is Diddy doesn't technically own that mansion, but it don't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, the Bush people are now coming out and saying that we can indeed blame Diddy for the fall of the Roman Empire. Because listen to this. A former George H.W. Bush official shares a wild viral theory that the LA wildfires were set to cover up Sean Diddy's Calm's alleged PDF activities and blank horrors as his raided mansion survives blazes. They said Catherine Austin Fitz, a former George H.W. Bush official, wants to know how many people connected to Sean Diddy Combs were impacted by the ongoing California wildfires. Radio Online can reveal the former political aide shared online theories suggesting the devastating fires may have been used to cover up Diddy's alleged crimes. Listen, Fitz appeared in her Financial Rebellion podcast on Thursday and said, in situations like the LA fires, I look at patterns. I look at some of the communities involved. How many of the homeowners were on P. Diddy's list? The Diddy list, of course, refers to unconfirmed lists of celebrities accused of being connected to parties hosted by Diddy where misconduct and grooming allegedly occurred. While the official list has never been released, several celebrities who have allegedly attended Diddy's parties include Jay-Z, Beyonce, J-Lo, Ashton Kutcher, Leonardo DiCaprio, Paris Hilton, Russell Brand, Mariah Carey, and Russell Simmons. Let me just say this. Paris Hilton actually dated Diddy. Yeah, they was together for a minute. I know. Fitz, who served as the United States Assistant Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for housing under George Bush Sr., said in a podcast that it's hard to conceive the original fires weren't triggered from the sky or from some suborbital platform. She also claimed she's seen dreadful things done to cover up PDF file and wouldn't be surprised if Diddy is somehow connected to the wildfires. Several people took to Twitter, formerly known as, took to X, formerly known as Twitter, to share clips of her comments. The video has been viewed over 150,000 times collectively on X. I will put that in here maybe right now. I'll put that in there if I can remember, okay? Let me put this in here to remember to put it in. If you don't see it, that means I didn't put it in. Anyway, right? In a resurfaced clip, listen, here's the thing I want to say, right? This woman served for George W. Bush. A lot of people are saying, oh, you don't have a right to say this. This couldn't be this. This could be that. I want to say this. I think she absolutely does have a right to say it. I think she worked at the highest echelon of government. And for everybody calling her a crackpot, saying she's redistributing conspiracy stuff, maybe, who knows if it's true or not. But I do believe that somebody that was at the highest level of the government and saw all this stuff, I believe she would know better than you, better than me, better than we, better than he. And at this point, after what we've seen people in power are capable of, how can you just dismiss what she's saying because you think it couldn't happen? Do you not think that someone that actually served in the White House doesn't know what is covered up, doesn't know the extent people go through to cover things up? And again, when we look at these wildfires, it is weird the way they are moving. It is weird the state reaction. I know everybody wants to blame the Democrats. The Democrats want to pay the Republicans. This is about power and not. This is about the haves and the have-not. You look at the Pacific. Well, I'm not going to get into this. I'll do it in a different video. Let's get back on the Diddy stuff. What do y'all think? Do y'all think there is any truth to what she recirculated? Do you think that Diddy might be involved? Let me just say this. I don't know if Diddy's involved. And I know it's like, but what about the powerful handlers? What about the people that that Diddy might be covering for? Just hear me out. Because it is odd that a house that Diddy was trying to get rid of, right, is now, a Diddy, and I don't know if it's completely burned down, but it might be like very damaged, right? The fact that a lot of key evidence from not just Diddy's house, but a lot of people's houses that were also with the underground tunnels are completely gone. Now, maybe it's an act of God. Maybe God is smiting Hollywood for everything that's ever happened. But all jokes aside, what does she know? What could she tell us? And why is this woman who worked for the highest office of the land, and she was very plugged in, why is everybody doubting that she might know something more than the average person does? Like, at the end of the day, I think there might be something valid to this. Again, what was Diddy out there setting the wildfires? No. But I would, if he had, I think Diddy is so eager to get away from these rats, roaches, and all this stuff. I think he would set fire to all the United States if it meant he could walk out free. I think he set fire to that jail that he's in if it meant that he could walk out free. This is a man that has no limits, no morals, and he served people that had even less limits and morals than he did. So at a certain point, we have to ask ourselves, what is the truth? And how far will people actually go to cover up the truth? I don't know, y'all. I don't know. I know that we are going to get answers soon. I know that the federal government is not stopping. I know, like I said in my last video, there's something called enterprise papers. That's where you say who the co-defendants are and what the RICO charges are. I know that in those enterprise papers, the feds want to give them early March. Diddy wants them to drop February 1st. I know that we're about to find out a lot of answers. And I know that Diddy better pray to God, whatever God he serves, or down below, right? He better pray to whatever God he serves that he don't get the Epstein special in between then. Anyway, y'all.
Over in the California wildfires. The other day, I did a video featuring a few clips of these UAPs. I'll leave the links up in the corner there so you can have a look. If you haven't had a look, please go and check it out. But the videos that I'm going to show you today is no shadow of a doubt. One in particular, which was caught live. Well, just see for yourself. So before we get into it, I just want to cast your eyes over this particular charity because I feel like it's at least I can do to just try to raise awareness of this terrible situation going on. The charity is called Project Hope. Okay, I'm going to leave the link in the description, but please make sure that you do your own research in the charities that you, if you are in a position to support. Okay, Project Hope is on the ground in Los Angeles in response to the historic fires which continue to decimate communities. Okay. Your emergency gift can multiply 4x in impact from private public and private institutions that will count toward our emergency 25,000 goal. Help rush urgent aid and supplies to survivors of these devastating fires with your donation. Your generosity also ensures we can continue our mission around the world and provide urgent relief with lasting impact for people facing disasters, conflict, and health crisis wherever the need is the greatest. Okay, so I'm going to leave that link below. Okay, so I'm going to be showing you 3 clips today. And before I show you the viral one, the big grand finale, the clip that is going to blow your mind, I think it's really important to show you these 2 first, particularly this one, because it has a lot of it explains a few things before seeing these clips that I've been showing you in the last video and today. All right, I got an email today. I don't want to show his name because he's not said that I can. Okay. He says, "Hi, I've been watching your videos on UAP. I just saw the one you posted regarding UAPs over LA fires. I filmed orbs over the Palisades fire on Tuesday night, which, by the way, is the same area the news footage you showed was from." That he's referring to the video I did the other day. "I've just started a YouTube page to upload some of my videos on this topic. I'm a pilot, and I've had a number of encounters with UAPs and orbs, both in the sky and on the ground. I'll enclose a link to my video taken on Tuesday night below. Feel free to use it if you want." Ari, your video. I can tell you all aircraft, including firefighting helicopters and fixed wing, were all grounded Tuesday night due to 60-70 mile per hour winds. There's no way a drone or a kite could have survived in these winds. My orbs were holding a, when he says my orbs, he's referring to the videos that I'm going to show you in a second. My orbs were holding a stationary track regardless of the winds. Now, he also mentions now something that I was asking on my last video about why these particular orbs were dripping. What were they dripping? Okay, and he's saying now, he's obviously speculating a little bit here. It says, if it's true that orbs are dripping molten metals, it's possible that they could be responsible for the fires. The area I filmed was near the Hollywood sign. About an hour later, that area became completely engulfed in flames. His channel was Skyward Files, by the way. This is the orbs he's talking about, clearly. Now, this is where he says the Palisades. If I've pronounced that properly, I'm so sorry if I haven't. So we've got what I'm guessing 1, 2, 3, 4 here. I'm not too sure what this one is. I don't know whether this, because we've got the horizon here, right? So you can see they are. You've got another one blinking down here as well. So this video goes on for 4 minutes 38 seconds. But when you scan through, oh look, these are glowing. And bear in mind, this is why I've told you that he said all planes were landed. They weren't allowed to be flying. Nothing was flying in those 60-70 mile per hour winds. Which also, again, what the hell? What? I don't understand why there's no sound to this. Oh, there is. Just turn my volume up. But like I say, the reason why I wanted to show the email, because, and regarding the 60-70 mile an hour winds, it explains a lot about my last video that I showed you about these UAPs on the beach, just doing odd maneuvers and everything like that, going against the wind, to the wind, up, down, straight lines. But these are seeming to be, moving horizontally in a perfect, like, back and forth. It's absolutely horrible what's going on over there. Absolutely horrible. This is crazy. And remember what he said, that moments later, that area, that particular area, was up in flames. Now, look, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's, inevitable when you've got winds like that, and you've got, hot ambers blowing over. You can see which way the wind's blowing. It's inevitable that this is going to be up in flames at some point. I'm not trying to defend UAPs, but when he was saying about the dripping, dripping metals or some sort, I'm not too sure. Look at this, it's incredible. And to see this with the naked eye as well would have been even more so. It must have been so bright. So what did we have at the beginning? Like 4 or 5 orbs? Look at this center one now. It's just getting bigger. The blues, yellows, greens. And now just disappear. Crazy. Really good capture. Well done, mate. And thanks for sending it to me. All right. Now, this was another email sent to me. It's just a short video clip, again, from Fox. This is live footage of what appears to be, and this is not the main event, okay, by the way. This is just the second clip. But this looks very similar to what I was showing you on my last video, okay? Look at this. This is live, by the way, in the Palisades again.
The city to San Vicente Boulevard.
Watch closely. We'll go back.
26th Street. An evacuation warning is in place for the area north of Montana to San Vicente.
Yeah, exactly. This guy's like, what the F? Watch again.
An evacuation warning is in place
Straight across. There you go.
Evacuation warning is in place for the area north. Evacuation warning is in place for the area. Evacuation warning is in place for the area north of Montana. The area place for the area place for the area place for the area north place for the area north place for the area.
That is some speed. That is some speed. I mean, what else could that be? I don't think it's a bug, right? It doesn't seem to be a bug. Why is it that these UAPs are spotted around these natural phenomena and disasters and things like that? Is it because we're recording more, or is it because they're around there more? And there is an idea that these certain events, they can attract UAP, okay? Listen to this. Solar eclipses, fires, or earthquakes release unusual amounts of energy, gravitational shifts during eclipses, heat, and electromagnetic disturbances from disasters. If UAPs are technically advanced, they might be drawn to study or utilize these energy anomalies. It's one to think about. I might look into that a little bit further. So there's not really one person to shout out on this one who sent me it. I've been sent it many times on X and over on emails. I do appreciate it. This again was live on Fox. Fox seems to manage to, capture these UAPs. So this is the moment when we see this UAP. And believe me, guys, this isn't a white blur speeding past. This is one of the most, in my opinion, legit UAP captures of all time.
Just recently starting to, come on the brink of being expired. We are going to see those winds picking up. And
did you see that? I'm not talking about this one down here. Pretty sure that's a helicopter, okay? This one that flies from here across.
That small little break, and that break just recently starting to, come on the brink of being expired. We are going to see those winds picking up, and it won't just be to see those winds. We are going to see those winds picking up. We are going to see those winds picking up, and
like, what are we seeing here? Let's slow this down. Let's go 0.25.
We are going to see those winds.
That does look like a UAP, in my opinion. It doesn't look like a plane.
Picking.
That doesn't look like a plane to me. It reminds me of the similar shape of what was it? April, I think 8th on the solar eclipse.
We are
now I gotta admit, right here. Where is it?
Being expired. We are
right here. You can see like maybe a tail, but if that's the angle of where you can see the tail, you should be able to see the wing or the wings, but you don't, right? You don't see it. And look at this. I'm sorry, but that doesn't look like a plane. The sheer size of it as well. The size of it, no trail. I mean, come on. What? What do you think?
the picking up.
Am I right?
We are going to see those winds picking up, and it won't that small little break. And that
I mean,
break,
look at this thing here. This has got to be maybe a helicopter.
just recently starting to come on the
Or a
brink of being
plane?
expired.
Look at the size
We
of that, right?
are,
Now, I'm sorry, helicopters they ain't small. Depending, obviously, what helicopter, but
going to see.
What? So we've got this here, and now look at the size difference. Look at the size difference of this thing.
Those winds picking up, and
What
it
is
won't
that?
just be for.
Let me know what you think, and please also make sure you go and check out my last video about the other strange.
Is burning, literally. Fires are ripping through the city, and while communities are scrambling to save what they can, it seems like leadership is just as lost as the hydrants are dry. Last night, I dove into the shocking realities behind these devastating fires, but today it's time to get straight to the point. Governor Gavin Newsom, Mayor Bass, and even President Joe Biden are fumbling. They find themselves under fire. Pun intended. The lack of resources, budget cuts, and now claims of diversity over merit
are dominating the headlines. You know black people got to be thrown under the bus somehow. It wouldn't be America if there wasn't some race in it. This time, race, gender, and orientation. But here's the question no one is asking. Are these excuses or are these failures by design? Chief Kristen Crowley is speaking out, pointing fingers and dropping truth bombs about what's going wrong. But is she revealing the whole story or just playing damage control? I'm breaking it all down. How budget cuts, systemic failures are fueling these flames. And trust me, this is going to go deeper than those burnt buildings. It's about lives, livelihoods, and accountability. So they were saying, hey, part of the problem is we diversified things to the point where now we diversified ourselves into an hell where we have people that are unqualified for the job.
Los Angeles Fire Department is launching its first ever Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Bureau. It is dedicated to ensuring a fair and equal workplace environment.
And that's due to not getting the best person for the job, but not letting that be the priority, but letting diversification, in this case, women, become the top deciding factor if you're going to be working there. So this is kind of not the best picture, but you see the image of the 3 fire people. The one's a fire department chief, one's a assistant, and one's something else, but also has rank. So, and they're all named Kristen. That's crazy, 3 Kristens. And like, I don't know if that was just something that just accidentally happened. If it was 3 Marks, white guys wouldn't be complaining. If it was 3 Marks or 3, what's a good white name? 3 Todds. I don't know if I ever met a black guy named Todd. But if it was 3 white guys named Todd, nobody'd be talking. This has been the culture war the last few years has been diversity, DEI. Before that, it was affirmative action. It was all these things. The talking point is that, hey, if we had more guys, instead of being worried about guys getting jobs, particularly white guys, then maybe the fire would be out by now, and maybe a lot of people's property would be saved by now, and yada, 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 yada.
Was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have.
And people were blaming these 3 individuals. Well, guess what happened today? Instead of just letting the blame be where it is, one of those Christians decided they wanted to speak up and defend themselves and defend the department and defend all the firefighters that work under her employ.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city? It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say, justifiably, what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community. Did they fail you? That is our job. And I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs. Did they fail you? Yes.
Chief Kristen Crowley, I believe the anchors wanted to ask a question.
Yes,
had some comments.
We do, Gigi. If you could please ask her regarding the Times article that came out that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was closed to repairs and it was empty. 117 million gallons of water.
Hold on a second, guys. I want to make I gotta make the distinction here. This police chief, this fire chief, Kristen Crowley. She just said something I don't think I usually hear when it comes to these interviews. She gave a yes or no answer. She tried to fight off for a second. Like for 2 seconds, she was like, hey, I just need what our department needs. That's what I'm here to talk about, what we need done. But when the reporter went back at her the second time, it said, have they failed you, yes or no? She paused, she took a breath, and she said the things. After that, all that needs to be said has been said already. The conversation is pretty much over because she's given us exactly what we needed to know. In her estimation, the problems or the reasons why the fires have been so devastating, part of that is due to the fact that the fire department, the fire department just has not been given what they've been needing in order to meet the needs of the people.
This article that came out that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was closed to repairs and it was empty. 117 million gallons of water could have been used in this fight.
The question is about the Santa Ynez Reservoir being empty. There's been a lot of questions about that.
Sure. So my stance on this is when a firefighter comes up to a hydrant, we expect there's going to be water. We don't control the water supply. Our firefighters are there to protect lives and property and to make sure that we're properly trained and equipped. That's my position on this. So if there's no water, I don't know how the water gets to the hydrants. Please defer that to DWP or whomever controls that part. But I can tell you the resiliency of our firefighters, if there's no water, they're going to go find water. They're going to figure out a way to do the best they can with what they've got in a very dynamic situation.
And I know you expressed concerns that those DWP hydrants would not be inspected thoroughly because of the budget cuts.
That is something to discuss, and we're going to look into that in regard to how we can ensure there's going to be water when we need it. But in the end, I'm going to defer that to DWP and whomever else controls the supply. I can guarantee you that when our firefighters showed up on that day with what they had, they did absolutely everything they could do to rescue and to save people's lives and property. And that's the bottom line. Now let's get them what they need to do their jobs. And so
let's get them water, Chief, because I was with your firefighters and they literally were watching a house burn down with pain in their eyes, not being able to do anything except pull water from a swimming pool to try to save a nearby structure that wasn't burning, and literally watching a house burn to the ground because they had no water.
That's exactly right. But did they continue to work? And did they continue to do what they had to do the best they could with what they had? Yes.
Chief, follow-up. Thank you very much for talking to us. We appreciate it. I believe we have a follow-up question from the studio.
Question on that reservoir issue. Is the fire department aware of when these resources are depleted, just like that reservoir had no water? Was she aware of that fact, that it was under construction and there was no water there?
Sandra Endo, one of our anchors, wants to know if the department is advised that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was going to be emptied. Were you aware that there was no water there?
No, we weren't aware of that.
They don't have to advise you?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So you had no idea that there wasn't such needed resource?
No, we weren't.
All right. Chief Kristen Crowley, again, Chief of the Los Angeles City Fire Department. Thank you for talking to us. I know it's been a very exhaustive, emotional, and I imagine you're mad, and I imagine you're sad. You may not want to talk about that anger or that disappointment, but I can see it in your eyes. Thank you. Thank you for talking to us.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll send it back to you.
That's a pretty straightforward interview. It doesn't leave a lot to the imagination. The DWP that she referred to is in charge of making sure those reservoirs are full. That's the Department of Water and Power. She also mentioned that if it wasn't for the budget cuts, it's a possibility the water would have been there, and also would have been a possibility they would have inspected or had those inspected to know that there was no water there. So we got a couple of issues. We got lack of water. We got lack of logistics. We got firemen who've been called out to stop a fire, go to a hydrant, and find that there's no water in the hydrant. That's not the fireman's fault. Not the fireman's fault at all. So that was a local Fox affiliate where Chief Los Angeles Fire Department Chief Kristen Crowley was responding to. Let's go see her on CNN. She made additional rounds.
To be clear, the $17 million budget cut and the elimination of our civilian positions like our mechanics did and has and will continue to severely impact our ability to repair our apparatus. So with that, we have over 100 fire apparatus out of service, and having these apparatus in the proper amount of mechanics would have helped. And so it did absolutely negatively impact. I want to also be clear that I have, over the last 3 years, been clear that the fire department needs help. We can no longer sustain where we are. We do not have enough firefighters. With that, I have also requested multiple budgets, interim budgets, to show how understaffed, under-resourced, and underfunded the LEFD is. So with that, also, we have clear data that shows the LEFD needs more help. We need 62 more fire stations. These reports also show that we've had a 55% increase in overall call volume since 2010. And guess what? We're doing it with less firefighters. I was also directed to develop a plan as part of a budget reduction exercise, and that could equate to $48.8 million. And I rang the bell that these additional cuts could be very, very devastating for our ability to provide public safety. That would have resulted to 15 fire stations closing down and potentially the elimination of over 300 firefighters. Again, I want to be clear that I submitted a very large budget that will actually allow our firefighters to do their job.
Okay. Wow, once again, it appears to be a very straight shooter. I think some of the criticism that was at least laid at the feet of Kristen Crawley here, the chief, that was pretty much immature. Seems like maybe the people that were making those accusations were doing so basically because they're bigots. Basically because they may have a little misogyny going on. Because she sounds like she's on top of her job. There may be a woman that failed at her job, but that woman may be the mayor. And God forbid, it may have been a man that failed at his job. And that man may be Gavin Newsom, Governor Gavin Newsom. Let's just, let's take a second here, guys. I want to make sure we understand. $17 million. That's how much was cut from the budget, which she says does impact services because that's less that they have to work with. In fact, she has a number for that. 100 fire apparatus. 100 pieces of fire apparatus. I don't know what that is. I don't know what fire apparatus is. We're talking about hoses. We're talking about equipment, trucks. What are we talking about? It's a resource. It's unavailable. She says the LAFD, Los Angeles Fire Department, was underfunded and it needs more help. They need at least 62 more fire stations. 50% call volume was up, and they've been doing that with less firefighters. They've been needing more firefighters. She's been ringing the bell. She put together a large budget. It's been submitted that would cover all of the costs. I can tell you one thing that she's doing that I do admire, and that is you got to strike when the iron is hot. Yeah, you can't pull punches because you got a female mayor named Karen Bass. You can't pull punches because Gavin Newsom's a really nice guy and he's got great hair. And he does a great acting job. No, that's not a reason to pull punches. When you're fighting for the people, you got to go in, you got to kick ass, you got to take names. And it's okay if you misspell some of the names in the process. That's what you got to do. So I said this earlier yesterday. I was saying how, it doesn't seem to me how there could ever be a system in the LA Fire Department or a circumstance where there would be a lack of diversity when it comes to fires or firefighters. Because as I recall, they love using prison labor. Well, I was right about that, but also it's a little bit more complicated. The Los Angeles Fire Department does use prison labor, okay? And it's horrific that they do that. And I was correct. It is predominantly Black Americans and Latinos that do these fires, that fight these fires. Because the male inmates who make up the majority of participants, though there are several female inmate fire camps, there are female inmate fire camps, there's nothing in comparison to how many male fire camps there are in the prisons. A high representation of Black men and Hispanics reflect broader racial disparities in California's prison system. They're mostly younger adults. It requires physical fitness and stamina. So you got to be in pretty good shape, just like you would have to be if you were a fireman trying to get into the fire department itself. Only inmates convicted of lower-level nonviolent offenses are eligible, and participants must exhibit good behavior, and pass physical requirements in order to participate. Physical fitness requirements. Career firefighters in California's fire departments have historically shown significant demographic disparities. The workforce has been predominantly white. That's 65 to 70%. Predominantly, almost, I mean, it would be very hard not to find a man, because 95% of firefighters are men. Let's talk about demographics when it comes to firefighters. There are a lot more Hispanic firefighters, for instance, 15 to 20%. Black firefighters, 3 to 5%. Asian firefighters, 3 to 5%. So when it comes to being hired to be a fireman and being in a prison fire camp and being allowed to fight fires, that's a different story. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, we got an issue here with disparity with the hiring practices of the Los Angeles Fire Department. There may be, but they're not filling them with anybody. They got empty seats to begin with. So they had this initiative that they wanted to hire more women, because historically there's a low access of women into the fire department. That's just across the board. But there's also a disparity of who they hire as private citizens. Now, I don't know if that's because they're not applying, or I don't know if that's because they're just not getting hired. There's been several discrimination lawsuits and settlements in recent years regarding hiring practices, workplace treatment, which have pushed some departments to reform their recruitment and promotion processes. So here's another thing I want to talk about. Look, and as much, I got no problems going after people that I feel, the super duper liberals, the porcelain progressives, the people that are doing things and saying things because they sound right, but they haven't done any of the legwork to find out, hey, is this actually functional on the ground? See, I'm cool for us to say we need more black people fighting fires, but give me the data that shows that they're trying to fight fires, and we're talking about private citizens who are making this their career. And it looks like we have that. I would not defend bigotry. I would not defend racism. I would not defend discrimination. So these programs that I heard Scott Jennings talk about,
was that there were too many white men who were firefighters, and we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have DEI, we have budget cuts, and yet I'm wondering now, if your house was burning down, how much do you care what color the firefighters are?
You can respond and then
listen. I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is Black women.
I played that clip yesterday. He brought up that they had programs to eliminate white men from firefighting. And I stated yesterday. No, there was a program to try to get to try to get someone other than white men, because there has been discrimination lawsuits against the Los Angeles Fire Department for its treatment and hiring practices. So they didn't develop a program because they felt nice. Scott's got it wrong. And a lot of people I saw talking about this have it wrong. They didn't start these initiatives because they got the warm and fuzzies and they wanted to go get a bunch of blacks or Latinos. These programs were started, at least a portion of them were started to mitigate lawsuits. Stop. Okay, I wanted to record this and put this in because I'm going to make things crystal clear for everybody watching. Some of our people watch a little bit too much Charlie Kirk. They want to rock out too much with Pat Bet-David over there at Valuetainment, and gloss over the fact that the Los Angeles Fire Department has faced discrimination charges from individuals as well as class action lawsuits due to discrimination on the basis of race, gender, and orientation. Those class action lawsuit settlements, some of those settlements, they came in the form of money, obviously, but also as a response to the settlements, the Los Angeles Fire Department has tried to initiate programs to say, hey, we're going to do a better job. We're going to stop just hiring white guys. Because that's all they've been doing. And it's been systemic for 100 years. And it's not just the Los Angeles Fire Department either. It would be remiss of me not to mention this is a problem in fire departments across the country. Very similar problems other places. But we're talking about the LA Fire Department right now, and I'm tired of people acting as if, oh, this is just DEI, and the Los Angeles Fire Department just wants to be woke. No. And another thing you're not going to hear everywhere else. Most of the people employed at the fire departments are white men, middle-class white men. That's important to mention. And those middle-class white men don't want to give up jobs and share jobs with black men and black women and Latinos and others. This is a problem when you're trying to build a coalition and when you're saying we want to make this Republican Party bigger, but then you don't want to admit that there's racial discrimination within many of the constituents that fit your demographic of your party, i.e. middle-class white guys. Middle-class white guys. So the culture of the Los Angeles Fire Department is we don't keep hiring guys that look like Brad. Keep hiring Brad and Cody. And they don't want to hire DeWine, Keith, or Keisha. You want black people to be feeling welcome in MAGA? Stop pretending these problems don't exist. Stop telling us we made it up in our minds. It's all a woke virus. Yeah. All of us are not bleeding heart liberals and all of us are not porcelain progressives, but we are black and paying attention and conscious and not kissing ass. We want equality as well as the ability to work together. But we got to have equality. Some of those white guys treat black folks the same way as they treat migrants and immigrants. And that's something black folks need to be aware of. Our fight ain't over. Now back to the video. Yeah, they didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, we need to diversify this place. Get us a new coat of paint. They did it as a response and a reaction and maybe the condition of a law settlement. We have a horrific practice in LA of using inmates to fight forest fires, wildfires, fires of this nature. That's one issue. The other issue is we have a lack of money in the budget. Budget monies were cut from the budget of the fire department, and lo and behold, we're in a catastrophe. And guess what we don't have? Resources. And this happens sometimes. You make cuts on something, you think, hey, you know what? Rob Peter to pay Paul. And then Peter wants his damn money, and you already paid Paul. And now Peter has to wait. But guess what? Paul's ready to break your legs. And that's what's happening in Karen Bass.
I'm confident you're going to be an outstanding mayor of LA.
Oh, thank you so much. Los Angeles, together is how we will get through this.
And I'm not going to feel bad for it. I'm not telling you to make you feel bad for that, because that was a decision. You could say, hey, anything that deals with life and death, and there's been 10 deaths due to these fires.
This is Andy Ingram for the Tim Black Show. We have a correction. As of today, 11 people. 11 people are so far known to have died across the Los Angeles area after destructive wildfires fueled by dry conditions and powerful winds erupted Tuesday. Our condolences go out to the friends, family, and neighbors during this horrific time. Now back to this crucial segment with Tim Black.
And people's entire lives up in smoke. Karen Bass could have came in with an initiative in her head and said, you know what? I'm not going to cut anything that has to do with life and death. I don't care what these people tell me. I don't care what the folks that are already in power are telling me. I don't care what my chief of staff is saying. I don't care what advice they give me. These are certain things I'm just not going to cut, because I'm not going to come back and be the one with my butt in a sling because I listen to you guys. Because the person that's going to fall on the blade will be moi. This is a grown person's game. Karen Bass is a grown woman. She made that decision. This idea that, oh, they're attacking her and we need to all go fight for her. I don't play that game. Nah, I don't play that game. You don't cut fire departments and then there's a fire and there's no resources and not enough resources, and then everybody acts like, oh my God, the bigots are coming for me, the bigots are coming for me. No, the people that are hurt are coming for you. The bigots or your competition, the other side of the aisle, they're going to use whatever they can use on you. But if you don't give them the keys to drive you, they can't take you nowhere. That's what the old guy used to tell me on the block, man. Called him Crab. Because he talk like this. He used to talk like this. They tell man, come on, preach. Preach, it's like I tell you, preach. If you don't give them the keys, they can't take you nowhere. I was a youngin' trying to figure life out. So in this situation, what I'm saying is, if Karen Bass had dropped the ball, if the mayor's office hadn't dropped the ball, if there wasn't a $17 million cut, if people did pay attention to what was happening with the amount of the lack of resources in the fire department, if there were the 62 other stations, 62 other fire stations that need to be in place, that aren't in place, if those things were taken care of, then there would be nothing to come get her about. Folks, it's kind of hard to hide that when there's a fire, people are screaming and everyone's standing around looking at the houses burn and the fire department's there and they can't get a fucking hydrant that has water in it. You can't fake that. That's not bipartisan or partisan. That's not Democrat or Republican. That's survival. That's real life stuff. And some people got their head up their asses. Everything's about political points. If it was your house, it was your mama's house, because you must not care about yourself. Nothing happens to you, so you can't imagine. But let's say maybe it's your mama's house, or your daddy's house, or your cousin's house, or your grandparents' house. And everything that they spent their life building is going up in smoke. Would you still be blaming Trump then? Would you still be talking about, that Rudy Giuliani? What the hell he got to do with it? He's in New York. To add insult to injury, we got Joe Biden. I don't know why Joe Biden wants to talk. Folks, hey, come on, 21st. Come on, 21st. We do not need to hear more from Joe. But here he is anyway. Defending empty hydrants.
Federal agency, from the Department of Defense on, every federal agency to be part of this. And the other thing is, look, I think you're getting a bad rap. I know you're getting a bad rap about these fire hydrants don't have enough water in them. Give me a break. Give me a break. What this is all about is the utilities, understandably. What they did is they cut off power because they're worried about these high tension lines coming down and causing more fires in the wind, right? When they do that, guess what? They shut off the power that controls the ability to pump the water. And so now you're getting generators here. I mean, this is complicated stuff. They're going to have a lot of demagogues out there trying to take advantage of it. But you're doing the right thing. We're going to get it done, God willing. And I say to the people of Southern California, God bless you. Stay strong. Stay strong. We're not going anywhere. We're not.
No, you are going somewhere, sir. You're going somewhere very soon. And if it's not the upper room, it's the hell out of here. Because I'm tired of hearing Joe Biden with his no ideas, no plan, no leadership, unfunctional, in-functioning, lack of functionality, opposite Swiss Army knife approach to problems. He ain't a Swiss Army knife. He's a Chinese knockoff that never worked. You open the box and all the blades are broke. Listen, a water hydrant, pretty simple. You turn the knob, the water comes on. Don't talk to me about all the things behind the scenes that aren't working correctly. There's a water reservoir that's empty, Joe. It's empty. We got Gavin Newsom sitting back there with nothing to say. We got Karen Bass with her hair in pigtails like she's a little girl and she don't know what the hell is going on. These people get elected, they should not be elected. That's what happens. People faith and function, they're really serious about this job, and then they come in and they can't do the job. Or they come in and they play corrupt games. They're getting a bad rap. See, they're all still playing political games, man. We're talking about people's lives, people's livelihoods, their lives, everything that they've owned, all their memories, all their material goods, everything gone. We got this guy talking about we're getting a bad rap about the fire hydrants. Is there water in it or not? How many fire hydrants are empty? Hey, look, man, I'm not saying that Karen Bass caused the fire. Obviously, she did not. She did not do that, okay? But what I'm saying is, The buck stops here and it fell in your lap, and there you go. And that's how it happens sometimes. Hey, man, she could have went her entire mayoral tenure, and there not been a fire this catastrophic. Or it could have been a smaller one, and they're like, uh-oh, we got all these things we better shore up. We got lucky, we dodged the bullet. But sometimes you don't get the grace of fortune. Sometimes you get a taste of a complete ass kicking, and that's what took place here. It's like hell opened up and unleashed the Kraken. And that's what we got going on. And the people that are surviving that, the people that just saw their world disappear into that hole, into that abyss, they're not giving you a bad rap. They need help. And that's your job. I don't know if you know or not, but there's Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law says anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And sometimes going wrong be going wrong. All right, guys.
In 8 days, everything changes for the United States. I don't think people know what's coming. I'm talking about a fundamental shift in America, the total destruction of the Obama-Biden era. According to sources I've spoken to, President Trump is about to unleash the largest bomb of day one executive orders that we've seen in American history. That means within 1 hour of putting his hand on the Bible, taking the keys back to the White House, President Trump is scheduled to put his name on hundreds of executive orders immediately. So buckle up, folks. This is going to be big. So let's go through some of the huge details of what we are expecting in just a week's time. So within hours of the president taking the oath of office, President Trump is set to unleash a tidal wave of executive orders, hundreds of them, designed to obliterate the Obama-Biden legacy. If past is prologue, we can actually look back to 2016 for some clues about what's coming. But make no mistake about it, this time it'll be much, much bigger. So back in 2016, Trump hit the ground running. On day one, he signed executive orders to begin construction of the border wall, withdraw the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, give the middle finger to environmentalists, expediting environmental reviews for infrastructure projects. He also froze federal hiring and took steps to undo Obamacare. Now imagine that, but doubled, tripled, or quadrupled in scale. Reports suggest Trump plans to reclassify thousands of civil service positions to ensure loyalty, reinstate travel bans to secure our borders.
So we should have a travel ban, an immediate deportation, and immediate consequences for the mother country that knowingly sends these people here.
Use a machete to basically slash regulations to reignite American industry. This isn't just hitting the reset button, guys. This is smashing it with a sledgehammer. This is why the left is panicking right now. They know that within 3 hours of Trump ascending to office, he will dismantle the policies they've spent years building. The Obama-Biden era isn't just ending, it's being erased. It's a globalist agenda that is being erased, and I cannot wait for it. So what's on the table for day one of 2025? Well, let's start with immigration. It starts right there. Trump plans to reinstate travel bans, not just as a matter of policy, but as a matter of national security. Reports suggest he's preparing mass deportation, stricter border enforcement, ensuring that the Darien Gap Panama pipeline of illegal immigration stops cold.
Number one, we're closing the border. It's going to be closed very strongly. It's going to be closed. And we're going to have to take people out that are criminals. We have people from jails from all over the world and from mental institutions. And as you know, they're going to have to be removed. And we're going to be really governed by common sense. These are the principles of common sense. We're not going to be governed by stupid people.
On the economy, expect new orders slashing regulations that have strangled American businesses. Trump's energy plan, by the way, is set to turbocharge independence by reopening federal lands for drilling, oil drilling, reversing Biden's crippling green agenda. But it's not just about oil, coal, and natural gas. It's also about critical minerals in the United States. One of America's biggest blind spots right now is critical minerals. The United States has some of the largest untapped reserves of essential minerals like copper, lithium, uranium, and other rare earth elements, which are vital from everything to construction, to computers, to EVs, to renewable energy technologies.
We're going to put the miners back to work.
Trump's focus on domestic mining isn't just about jobs. It's about securing America's supply chains, reducing our dependence on foreign nations like China for these resources. We get a huge amount of our enriched uranium, by the way, from Russia. This needs to stop right now. Let's talk about education reform. Also on the table, Trump has hinted at dismantling woke federal education policies, expanding school choice, giving parents the power to decide what's best for their kids.
Rather than indoctrinating young people with inappropriate racial, sexual, and political material, which is what we're doing now, our schools must be totally refocused to prepare our children to succeed in the world.
But it's not just at home where America has been taken advantage of. It's on the global stage as well. So let's talk about Europe. For years, the United States has been the economic engine propping up Europe. They sell us 20% of their goods. But what do we get in return? A massive trade deficit. Now, I lived in Europe for years. And let me tell you, try going to the store and trying to find like an American product on their shelves. You won't find it. You won't find anything like this. Oh, you want to pick up some Lysol wipes to clean your countertops? Sorry, can't buy it there in Europe. You want some like beef stock to make your soup? Sorry, you're not going to find it. You want some organic, like half and half for your coffee? Sorry, you're not going to find anything like this. You're going to get these generic, crappy European brands, whether it's laundry detergent or basic household goods. All you'll find are subpar European brands. And this isn't just anecdotal. The numbers tell the same story. Our trade deficit with Europe stands at an eye-popping $131 billion. That's not trade. It's a subsidy. Plain and simple. We are propping them up. Trump understands this better than anyone. He's not just going to level the playing field. He's going to tip it in America's favor. The days of Europe freeloading on American prosperity are over. It's not just Europe, though. Let's talk about Canada. Over the past few days, Trump's comments about Governor Trudeau have sent the liberal media into a frenzy, and of course, for good reason. Trump called out how the United States has essentially been subsidizing Canada's economy for years. Whether it's lopsided trade deals, unfair tariffs, or energy policies that put American workers last, Canada has benefited from our generosity while giving us very little in return.
I said to Trudeau, I said, why are we subsidizing you $200 and $250 billion a year? He said, I really don't know. And I said, well, I don't know either. I said, what would happen to Canada if we didn't? He said Canada would be obliterated if that happened. I said, then Canada should be a 51st state.
The free ride is over. Next, let's talk about Greenland. The liberal media ridiculed Trump when he floated the idea of purchasing Greenland from Denmark. But let's not forget the historical precedent here. Thomas Jefferson made the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, doubling the size of the United States for $15 million. Critics called it reckless. Sound familiar? Then there's Harry Truman, a Democrat, who proposed buying Greenland in the late 1940s because he understood its strategic importance, both for mineral resources and national security. What Trump suggested isn't crazy. It's actually pretty visionary. You might not like it. It depends on where you stand on the issue, but it doesn't matter. Greenland is rich in resources, critical minerals. Its strategic location in the Arctic makes it a key player in global security. Trump recognizes this just as Thomas Jefferson and Harry Truman did. And finally, Panama. When Jimmy Carter handed the Panama Canal back to Panama in 1977 for $1, it came with one condition: neutrality. But neutrality is a distant memory. Today, China has a significant influence over the canal, creating a choke point that directly threatens the United States' interests. But the canal isn't the only issue. Just south of it lies the Darien Gap, which we've covered extensively here on this show, a dangerous stretch of jungle that's become a pipeline for illegal immigration into the United States, including military-age men from China. Heck, even 60 Minutes, liberal 60 Minutes, highlighted this alarming trend. This isn't just about immigration. It's a national security concern.
Migrants from China are now the fastest growing group of people entering the United States illegally from Mexico.
China?
So bottom line, a massive wave of executive orders, a complete reset of failed globalist policies, and a clear plan to put America first. Trump's day one agenda isn't just about undoing the Obama-Biden era. It's about building a stronger, more independent future for this country. And as we've seen with Europe, Canada, Greenland, Panama, the message is clear. America will no longer be taken advantage of. The free rides are over. So that's the news update part of today's video. Now let's talk about today's sponsor, which is tied directly to the
matters. Is Europe about to freeze this coming winter? Question many analysts have contemplated given the dynamics taking place as Russia turned off the spigot while Qatar threatens to cut off gas deliveries to Europe. So what is the old continent is going to do moving forward? My brief analysis is divided into 8 key points. But before I'll delve deeper into it, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification button so you will be notified every time I upload a new video. And thank you for your support. Number 1, gas crisis in Europe. The fallout of halting Russian supplies via Ukraine on a New Year's Day, the Russian energy giant Gazprom announced the suspension of gas transit through Ukraine into Europe, marking a stark new chapter in an already tense relationship between Moscow and much of the European continent. This decision has far-reaching implications as natural gas remains a critical energy source for many European Union countries. While the halt has been brewing for months aimed at shifting geopolitical dynamics, economic pressures and backdrop of protracted conflict, it still came at a shock as to European capitals unaccustomed to such abrupt energy disruptions. Early signs of the fallout are already visible in Slovakia and Moldova, signaling that the gas crisis may accelerate and that Europe could be on the verge of another turbulent winter of high prices and energy shortages. Number 2, a long brewing crisis. Europe's heavy reliance on Russian gas is no secret. For decades, pipelines running from Russia through Ukraine to Europe have been a cornerstone of the continent's energy security and economic development. Although newer routes and suppliers have emerged over time, such as liquefied natural gas from the United States, of course, at a higher price, if I may add, or pipeline gas from Norway, which is limited, by the way. Russian natural gas has remained a significant component of Europe's energy mix. Even amid political tensions, major crises, and sanctions, the energy relationship between Russia and Europe persisted because both sides reaped substantial benefits. Russia needed revenues from gas exports, and Europe needed the relatively low-cost, stable supply of Russian energy. Yet, this equilibrium has been eroding in recent years due to Europe's policies. Heightened tensions over Ukraine, which was orchestrated by the US, have fundamentally altered the geopolitical landscape. As European leaders have ignorantly sought to reduce their dependence on Russian resources, Moscow, on the other hand, has explored alternative markets, particularly ones in Asia, and new transit routes that bypass Ukraine. The freezing of Russian assets and sanctions imposed by Western nations have spurred Russia to look for ways to tighten its control over the flow of energy to Europe, and rightly so. Against this backdrop, the final decision to hold gas transit through Ukraine is not entirely surprising, though its suddenness caught many by surprise. It comes on the heels of Qatar warning Europe that it will stop its deliveries of gas if Europe moves forward with penalizing Qatar. Interesting dynamics. Number 3, immediate repercussions in Slovakia and Moldova. The cessation of Russian gas transit has already triggered significant alarm in Slovakia. As a landlocked nation heavily reliant on energy import, Slovakia has few immediate alternatives to fill the gap left by the abrupt cutoff. Reports indicate mounting concern among Slovak officials over potentially soaring energy costs for households and industries alike. Although Slovakia can tap into shared European storage facilities and partially diversify through interconnections with neighboring countries, these measures may not be sufficient to stave off shortages if the crisis deepens, which most likely it will, especially during the winter heating season when demand typically peaks. Moldova, which traditionally relies on Ukrainian pipelines for much of its gas, now finds itself in an even more precarious situation. The Moldovan government was already grappling with a high inflation and economic pressures linked to the European Union's failed policies and regional upheaval. With the interruption of supplies via Ukraine, Moldovan households and businesses face an immediate threat of insufficient heating fuel, prompting the government to explore emergency measures. Good luck with that. Discussions are underway about seeking alternative energy sources, potentially from Romania or other European Union partners, but such arrangements often take time to set up, leaving vulnerable populations at a risk of real hardships in the near term. Number 4, reactions and a broader impact across Europe. News of the halted gas transit reverberated throughout the European Union. Energy ministers convened urgent meetings to evaluate the severity of the disruption and assess their emergency reserves. Yet, they failed to address the real issue at heart, blindly following US policies and dictates. In Brussels, officials reiterated the need for solidarity mechanisms. Here we go again with more slogans among member states, whereby countries with more robust storage or alternative supply routes can assist those more acutely affected. Good luck with that. The timing could hardly be worse. Europe's energy system has already been under strain amid global supply chain disruptions, volatility in energy markets, and ongoing inflationary pressures. Public sentiment has been sensitive to spikes in electricity and heating bills, raising the specter of social unrest prices soared again. Ask the Germans, the Dutch, the French, the Italians, among others. The abrupt stoppage of Russian gas transiting through Ukraine could exacerbate existing stress on the system, just as temperatures drop in the heart of winter. Meanwhile, energy analysts warn that the crisis extends beyond immediate scarcity or skyrocketing prices. The sudden cutoff signals Russia's willingness to use energy supplies as a political lever, reinforcing perceptions that it views gas and oil not merely as economic commodities, but as strategic tools. European leaders must weigh urgent short-term needs, such as keeping the lights on and heating homes, against the longer-term imperative of safeguarding the region's energy independence. Once again, good luck with that. European leaders thinking rationally after what we witnessed in the last 2 years. I just don't see that. Number 5, seeking alternatives. Even before this latest disruption, several European nations had begun to accelerate their pivot away from Russian gas, if they can afford it, of course. Germany, for instance, turned to new liquefied natural gas terminals, forging imports deals with suppliers ranging from the United States, of course, at a much higher price, to Qatar. Poland invested heavily in LNG infrastructure and interconnectors, linking it to neighboring countries. Others, like Italy and Spain, explored ramping up pipeline projects from North Africa or further tapping into renewables. Yet these efforts, while meaningful, remain works in progress. LNG imports require specialized terminals, and capacity may still be limited relative to demand. Building or expanding pipelines can take years, as can scaling up renewables energy to replace fossil fuels on substantial scale. If Europe faces a harsh winter or subsequent winters with repeated gas disruptions, the pressure to fast-track these alternatives will intensify. But let's not forget that Europe is not politically independent. The decision will be made in Washington, D.C., not in Brussels. Number 6, political consequences and shifting alignments. At the political level, the suspension of Russian gas transiting via Ukraine underscores the fragile nature of Europe's security architecture. Nations such as Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have been vocal about the need to bolster Europe's independence from Russia's energy, arguing for years that the Kremlin regional ambitions pose a direct threat to European unity. But let's be honest, that's what Western governments want you to believe. Countries with historically close ties to Russia, such as Hungary, now, of course, reality dictates, finds themselves in delicate positions, grappling with heightened suspension from fellow EU states on the one hand and potential energy vulnerabilities on the other. With each new energy disruption, the case for deeper EU integration on energy policy gained momentum. Although coordination mechanisms exist, critics say they have been slow to respond to genuine crises. Proposals have included creating a fully integrated European energy union that manages joint purchasing, stockpiling, and distributions of gas. Others advocate for redoubled efforts in renewable energy and electrification to reduce dependencies. Good luck with that. But forging consensus on such measures among 27 member states, each with unique economic needs and political pressure, remains a formidable challenge. Beyond the European Union, the crisis has implications for transatlantic relations. The United States has pledged to supply more LNG to help its European allies at a much higher price, of course, which was the objective to begin with. But Washington also expects to see Europe invest in infrastructure that can handle American gas. Any gap between promise and delivery could deepen mistrust. For Russia, The turn towards leveraging gas flows in this manner could push Europe closer to NATO or other defense arrangements, further polarizing the continent's security environment. I have to counter this latest assertion, given how Trump's plan for Europe, more tariffs and payments for defense, will deepen Europe's crisis. Number 7, prospects for resolution or escalation. At this moment, it is unclear how the standoff will resolve. Diplomatic channels remain open, but mutual distrust between Moscow and Brussels runs deep. Should Russia perceive the halt as leverage to extract concessions such as sanction relief or security guarantees, European negotiators might find themselves in an uncomfortable position. Conversely, if the EU and its member states stand firm, seeking alternative sources of energy, Russia might lose long-term customers to new competitors. Complicating matters is the volatile situation in Ukraine itself, with the pipeline through Ukrainian territory now idle. Ukraine faces lost transit revenue, money that provided a lifeline for the country's economy. Kiev, already engaged in various hostilities, lacks both the resources and the willingness to compromise with Moscow. And with Ukraine's massive corruption, it remains to be seen whether international mediators can broker an arrangement or an agreement, for that matter, that restores some gas flows to humanitarians or strategic reasons. Number 8, where Europe goes from here. Europe's energy crisis is not merely a passing storm. It reflects a broader, more structural shift in how the continent sources and secures its energy. The abrupt cutoff of gas transiting from Russia via Ukraine heightened the urgency of diversification, speeding up the continent's search for new suppliers, expanding LNG capabilities, and strengthening renewable energy commitments. Governments are acutely aware that public patience for chronic energy disruptions is limited indeed. Still, it's far from certain that Europe can orchestrate a smooth transition. Infrastructure constraints, cost barriers, and entrenched political interest could slow progress, leaving the old continent precariously exposed to further energy shocks. After all, the EU is like a child that never grows up and is always in constant need of discipline and direction from its master. For Slovakia, Moldova, and others caught in the immediate fallout, the crisis is a harsh wake-up call that underscores the risk of dependency on any single supplier. For the rest of Europe, it's a glimpse of what could lie ahead if comprehensive reform are not enacted swiftly. Here is my conclusion for you. In many ways, the stop of Russian gas transit via Ukraine signals a broader shift in Europe's relationship with one of its largest neighbors. It underscores the interconnection between energy, geopolitics, and national security, reminding Europe that economics cannot be neatly separated from political realities, something they should have thought about 2 years ago. Whether the continent can adapt quickly and cohesively remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the gas crisis stands as a defining moment in Europe's modern energy history, with outcomes likely to shape the region's futures and fortunes for years, if not decades to come. If you like this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. As always, remember, geopolitics, impacted daily life.
As the Biden administration is on its way out, thankfully, it is determined to do as much damage as possible in its final days. Just over the past 7 days, Biden approved $8 billion more for Israel, and then he sent another $500 million for Zelensky. Let me know what you think about this, American taxpayers. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you approve of this? Let me know in the comments. So, as if escalating wars wasn't enough, the outgoing administration decided to throw some good money after bad and impose yet another round of sanctions on the Russian Federation for good measure, despite the fact that it has already been established by both Western and non-Western experts that more than 20,000 sanctions already imposed on Russia failed to accomplish their intended objectives of weakening Russia's economy and also alienating it from the rest of the world. Sanctions failed. However, US leaders believe that, well, this time it will be different. Biden just imposed extremely tough sanctions on Russia, targeting its crude oil and gas industries. The latest move includes sanctions on 2 Russian oil companies. It includes sanctions on Gazpromneft and on Surgutneftgaz, as well as more than 180 shadow fleet tankers, natural gas producers, energy traders, and oil field service providers. In the short run, these sanctions may reduce the fleet of ships that are available to deliver crude oil from Russia elsewhere. However, in the long term, this is not going to make a difference. And this is precisely why China and Russia, for example, are building new oil and gas infrastructure. They're building new pipelines, including the proposed China-Russia crude oil pipeline. And this is in addition to the already operating the Eastern Siberia Pacific Ocean oil pipeline. Now, Foreign Policy published this really interesting article where they celebrated Biden's decision. Foreign Policy, in yet another prepaid, controlled fake narrative piece, is cheering on Biden's decision. It writes, Russia is now in the penalty box. Of course, Foreign Policy doesn't really tell us the effect that these sanctions have on Europe. Then it continues. Senior administration officials expect that the new measures will cost Russia billions of dollars a month in foregone energy revenues. And then they conclude that is not a small achievement when the Kremlin banks on the order of about $20 billion a month. Okay, so of course, Foreign Policy failed to mention how these sanctions will affect Europe. What is it going to do to European economy? Of course, it is going to first and foremost hurt European consumers and European economies, but that remains ignored. To be fair, economic warfare has become the go-to instrument of US foreign policy, and it is likely something that stays regardless of who is in office. As has been the case with previous economic restrictions since 2022 or even earlier since 2014, since the annexation of Crimea, there will be a serious fallout effect on other states that rely on exports of energy resources from Russia. The European Union is just one of those actors that is being de facto sanctioned by the Biden administration. Now, in response, Foreign Minister of Hungary, Peter Szijjártó, recorded a video, which I will show you in just a minute, where he openly says that these sanctions imposed by the United States on Russia will first and foremost make life more difficult for people in Europe, and it will further undermine economic performance of the European Union. As the result of these sanctions, he says, prices will rise. And as we know very well, if energy costs rise, the cost of everything else goes up as well due to more expensive transportation, heating, cooling, you name it. Here's a short video. It's only a couple minutes long. Please watch the video and I will return right after.
Az amerikai elnökválasztáson súlyos vereséget szenvedett, ezért távozó elnöki adminisztráció napokban újabb szankciós csomagot léptetett életbe az energia szektorban. Ez a szankciós csomag ismételten Közép-Európa számára okoz súlyos kihívásokat. Azzal, hogy a szerbiai olajellátásban kulcsfontosságú szerepet játszó vállalat is szankciós listára került. Itt Közép-Európában egy újabb kihívással nézünk szembe. Azzal ugyanis, hogy a régióba érkező nyers kőolaj mennyisége csökkenni fog, így az üzemanyag piac kihívások elé néz, vagyis ez azt jelenti, hogy a térségben kevesebb kőolaj feldolgozására tud sor kerülni, így a térségben sokkal nagyobb mennyiségben lesz szükség a kész, már finomított üzemanyagra, benzinre, illetve dízelolajra. Hogyha nő az igény, de csökken a feldolgozási képesség, akkor az sajnos azt jelenti, hogy nagyon komoly áremelési veszéllyel nézünk szembe. Így a távozó amerikai adminisztráció által az energiaszektorban most életbe léptetett szankciók Közép-Európában komoly üzemanyag ár emelkedéshez vezethetnek.
Clearly, Biden's new round of sanctions is meant to impact Europe as much as it seeks to damage Russian economy. But what it fails to see is that we no longer live in a unipolar world where countries have to take orders from a hegemon that openly seeks to pursue its own interests at the expense of others. The fact that Russia, along with China, is a leader of the multipolar world will help it find alternative trade routes, alternative trade partners to decrease potential losses. Europe, on the other hand, does not have alternative cost-effective energy resources. Buying LNG or oil that originates in the United States at a 40% markup is an economic suicide, and it has already started to become quite obvious given the industrial decline in Germany, Europe's major economy, as well as economic downturn across Europe. China is the biggest crude oil importer in the world, and it will likely become Russia's stronger trade partner precisely because of these new sanctions. In 2023, for example, China imported 564 million metric tons of crude oil, which was an increase from 2022. Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq were China's main sources of crude oil imports in 2023. Compared with the prior year, China's crude oil imports increased the most from Russia, Iran, and Brazil. And of course, those are BRICS members, as we know. Over the past several years, China-Russia crude oil trade saw unparalleled increases. And now that Russia is being coerced even more by the West, it will only lean more towards its Eastern partners, with whom it has been developing closer ties as part of the BRICS bloc. It would be safe to assume that Biden's sanctions will draw Russia and China even closer than they have been. China will likely be more than willing to negotiate mutually beneficial contracts to help offset some of the losses associated with the most recent restrictions. However, it is going to be a new way for both countries to cooperate. Additionally, it will shift Russia's focus away from shaky and unreliable markets. So all in all, Biden just delivered a major gift to China and to Russia, and he also delivered yet another blow to Europe as its major economies continue to crumble. Let me know what you think about these sanctions in the comments below. I know many of you disapprove of these sanctions. I would love to hear from you.
Garland, I'm sorry to expose you to all this obscenity, but it is the zeitgeist in Britain today, I must say. And I know by American standards, these things are quite horrifying. But let me start by asking you, if anyone else in the United States has made the connection, let me put it that way, between sending billions and billions of dollars to tens, scores of billions of dollars to Ukraine and to Israel, when you can't even put out fires in the heart of America's iconic Hollywood. Does anybody make that connection?
Well, I would argue that Martin Luther King made that connection back in the 1960s when he said the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Now, I'm not saying that in that I want bad things to happen to California or to the people of California. Certainly I don't. However, in this particular instance, you would have to listen to that quote and look at what's going on there and hope that maybe the people, some of the people in that region could wake up to reality and understand that we literally saw people burned to death in tents, and that exact same punishment, if that's the right word, is being visited upon the people who have used their power in the media to cover up and excuse those kinds of activities.
It is, I mean, it's undeniable fact that the money that was sent to little Zelensky and Netanyahu, if it had been spent on America's own infrastructure, well, the reservoirs wouldn't be empty. The ocean would have been desalinated. The fire hydrants would have worked. The fire department would not have suffered a massive cut in its numbers and in its equipment. I mean, morally, it is an extraordinary damnation of the political class in the state of California, who are, of course, all Democrats.
Well, as a perfect example of what you're saying, the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, she's a former member of Congress. She's also the former vice chair for the National Endowment of Democracy. Up until last year, when she was the mayor, she was still on the board of the National Endowment for Democracy, the CIA's regime change operation that pretends not to be a CIA regime change operation. When this disaster went down, she was in fact in Ghana on some foreign policy mission. What that has to do with her duties as the mayor of Los Angeles, I don't know. She cut $17 million recently from the budget of the fire department in Los Angeles. They fired a number of firemen who refused to take the, shall we say, safe and effective option that was offered to them by the city of Los Angeles. So, I mean, when you look at this disaster, there is certainly a line of activity that points to this coming. And here's the weird thing. In recent months and years, there's been, particularly in recent months and even weeks, there have been a great number of people who have had their fire insurance canceled. And then a bunch of fires started when we're not even in fire season, kind of serendipitously, simultaneously, after all of these people got their fire insurance canceled, fires started all over the place. It's really strange what's going on in California.
It is very strange. And of course, the Liberals claim it's about climate change. Others see arsonists running wild on the streets. I've seen the videos myself. What is the real story about these fires, do you think?
The truth is, right now, we don't know the real stories about how they're started. But I think there are so many other things to discuss here because we may never know how they started. Certainly, it's kind of strange that they all started just before we had all of these like 80-mile-an-hour gust of winds. It was, kind of the perfect storm, actually, technically. Absolutely the perfect storm here for this kind of disaster. But the issue goes back to government response, that the system is, I would like to say it's broken, but it's not broken. It works exactly as it should. We can go to East Palestine in Ohio, Pennsylvania, with the train turning over. The government at the time, Joe Biden, was too focused on getting money, getting $60 billion for Kiev to deal with that. We can look at what happened recently in the North Carolina, Tennessee region with the catastrophic floods, and they offered people $700. At the same time, they were sending another $10 billion overseas. And of course, Joe Biden responded very effectively to this particular pain, this particular incident, by giving another $500 million to Ukraine. So perhaps if the people in Los Angeles would move to Kiev, they could get a few dollars to, to help them out in this particular incident.
For a few dollars more. It's Lee Van Cleef's 100th birthday, by the way. The Resnicks, tell me about them. I mean, 50 years ago, I remember Faye Dunaway and Jack Nicholson in a movie called Chinatown, which was precisely about ruthless capitalists owning water resources and starving the people of them in order to make a private profit. That was seems to me, as I recall it, it's many years since I saw it, that was the whole thesis of the film. And now, life imitates art. This couple, the Resnicks, bought up all the water resources in the state of California. How is that even possible?
The fact is, here's the sad thing. We'll never be able to answer that question. That's the sad thing, because there was a secret meeting some years ago in which the water resources were transferred to the Resnicks. This was water, again, neoliberal outsourcing. The people of California own their water resources. I mean, they are water, should anybody even own them in the first place. But whatever the case, certainly there has to be infrastructure to move the water in a desert environment such as California. But the Resnicks were able to have some kind of a secret meeting, and I would imagine they were one of the top donors for Dianne Feinstein and very, very close friends with the Feinstein family. So I would imagine that may have had something to do with it. But there's the infamous secret meeting, and afterwards they got control of a significant portion of the water resources. Now they have farms, I understand, like 3 times the size of San Francisco, pistachio, all kinds of things like that. They've been accused in the past of subverting the water resources from some of the regions where the people needed it to some of their farms. So you see the neoliberal game, a secret corrupt meeting with very, very powerful people that we'll never know about. And in the end, the people get burned to death. And there's no water in the hydrants of all things. But we were protected. We were protected because they fired a lot of firemen because they refused to take the safe and effective option. So I guess somehow that must have saved some lives, according to the people in charge.
Wow. I think Newsom his goose is cooked now. His political ambitions surely at an end. But let's switch gear, Garland. It's the big day coming up. This is the 12th, so Joe Biden's in for another 8 days. Let's stop talking about him and talk about how it looks to you. What kind of whirlwind is Trump going to come in with? Some of it is unexpected. He retweeted an interview by Jeffrey Sachs in which Jeffrey describes the sinister, dark and sinister personality of Benjamin Netanyahu and how he's been trying to drag America into war with Iran for decades. And Trump retweeted that. And then Netanyahu declared he was no longer coming to the inauguration. Is this a straw in the wind?
I certainly hope that is an indication that Donald Trump will have a more realistic foreign policy. He also had a video there's another video out of Donald Trump where he talks about the conflict in Ukraine, and he makes it clear that he sees the the expansion of NATO as being at the root of the problem. So it sounds to me like there is some realism there, that maybe he has some people around here around him that's realistic. I know there are at least 2 people who are likely to be in his administration who have admitted that they watched the Duran. I think we probably have the alternative media effect going on here, where there are people in Trump's administration who are watching and listening to alternative media and maybe getting some more realistic perspectives. One of the things that Donald Trump's going to have to deal with is the sabotage. We see that just this week, Joe Biden admitted that the latest Russian oil sanctions will increase inflation on the American people, and one would have to imagine that that is the intent. Certainly, the Biden administration will likely do other things to try to sabotage the Trump team's ability to move forward. And I'm not saying that Donald Trump's going to be good or great or bad or anything. We have no idea how things are going to work, but certainly there are promising signs as far as foreign policy, and certainly there will be ones that make us scream and cry at the same time, no doubt, knowing Donald Trump.
Well, the Ukraine track is, of course, one of the most obvious ones. And there seems little doubt that President Trump is going to ditch Zelensky. Zelensky will have to be replaced because that's the only basis on which the Russians will talk to the Ukrainian government. I mean, their attitude is, why should we speak to the monkey? We want to speak to the organ grinder. And the organ grinder is the president of the United States. So it seems likely to me that the Ukrainian regime is on its last legs. I mean, on the battlefield itself, Russia is carrying all before it. And if they don't get round a table soon, there'll be nothing to get round the table about. But one of the things that I was keen to talk to you about was big tech. The Trumpites, the MAGA people, the right, the Musks, they made a big thing about the Democratic Party being the party of censorship and under the guise of fact-checking and all the rest, and made out at least that they would usher in a new free speech era. And it's already had some impact. You've got Zuckerberg on his knees at Mar-a-Lago, throwing money at Trump for the inauguration ball and sacking his fact checkers, describing them in the most extreme terms. Should we be hopeful that at least to some extent, life will be freer for commentators like thee and me under this Trump administration?
I think there are some indications that we should be hopeful. I do think a lot of that depends on what happens in the Middle East and the Gaza conflict, because one of the fears or concerns that I have is that under the Democrats, the Ukraine conflict was used as the impetus for censorship. Anything that you said, you're a Putin's lover or whatever the case may be, so you had to be censored. And it is possible that if or maybe one could argue even likely, that if the Gaza conflict is not mitigated in some way, that it will be replaced. They will replace the Ukraine conflict as the reason for censorship with the certainly with the issue of Zionism. So many of us are concerned. We see signs with what's happening in Meta, and the pushback from the liberal class, I think, is a positive thing, because if the liberal class is angry, something good must be going on. But will that be replaced with you're an anti-Semite and you hate Israel, and so therefore you have to get the same treatment as before? I think that remains to be seen, and that's a concern that people should be ready to make some noise about if it becomes the case.
Now, Netanyahu's not coming to the ball. Have you got your invitation? You're just round the corner. Are you going to at least take a look at the inauguration?
Yes, I've actually been invited to speak at least one event so far, so I imagine I'll be in the vicinity. Right now, I would say my advice to Donald Trump is going to be hide somewhere in a bunker. until such time, you haven't gotten in office yet, and we've seen them take a couple of swipes at Donald Trump. So right now he's not president. He needs to be very, very careful. But I'm very close, just on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., and I will be speaking at some events, and I will be involved in some of the things going on. I imagine there'll be some protests against Donald Trump, but based on the margin of victory, I can't imagine that the protests will be very well attended.
Now, he got off the hook on the Stormy Daniels, didn't he? I mean, they have tried to kill him, but they've also tried judicially through lawfare to destroy him. And that, to a remarkable degree, has all just run into the sand.
Oh, it's far worse than that, because it's backfired. I think they turned Donald Trump into a sympathetic figure. I think there were a lot of people in this country who saw it as lawfare. People who understood the charges were baffled as to how any prosecutors could go forth with some of these absurd charges. So ultimately, I don't think that these were effective, and they backfired. Additionally, I think they'll backfire because I think they infuriated Donald Trump. I think here we are a week and a half before he becomes president, and he got one last punch to the face. So I think Donald Trump's going to come in with some residual anger, and hopefully he will have people do deep investigations, deep dives. I'd like to know about the connections between these prosecutors and the people in the White House to see if, in fact, these prosecutions were local, or if they were, in fact, instigated by people very high up in the Biden administration, which I suspect. I also think that Joe Biden is going to be issuing a lot of pardons over the next, they're talking about that over the next week or so. But I don't think that the Trump administration should refrain from investigating the people that have been pardoned. Even if you're not going to charge them, if you can't charge them, the American people deserve to know the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I've actually sent him a long list of things that he should do in that regard. Investigate things, starting with the, I believe, fraudulent election of Joe Biden 4 years ago. I don't know if he'll ever read it, and if he does, whether he'll ever act on it. But I'll add that point that you've just made to the list. Garland Nixon, radio talk show host, political analyst supreme, always a delight.
حالا امروز سردار حسین سلامی در قامت فرمانده کل سپاه از میان یکی از صدها پایگاه موشکی زیرزمینی نیروی هوافضای سپاه از این پایگاه بازدید می‌کنند. اینجا سردار حاجیزاده فرمانده نیروی هوافضای سپاه او را همراهی می‌کند و در حال توضیح بخش‌های مختلف این پایگاه است. پایگاهی همچون یک آتشفشانی البته خفته در دل کوه. اما به گفته فرمانده نیروی هوافضای سپاه در مدت زمان بسیار کوتاه این آتشفشان خفته آماده فوران خواهد شد روی سر دشمن. در عملیات وعده صادق دو، موشک‌های این پایگاه توانستند با عبور از سامانه‌های پدافندی متعدد و متراکم رژیم صهیونیستی پایگاه هوایی نگاتیو محل اصلی استقرار جنگنده‌های F-35 این رژیم را نابود کنند. هنوز رژیم صهیونیستی نتوانسته پایگاه هوایی نگاتیو را به حالت عملیاتی خود رهبری کند. فرمانده کل سپاه میگوید برای عرض خداوت به نیروهای عمل کننده در عملیات وعده صادقه 1 و 2 این پایگاه به اینجا آمده و ارزیابی از آخرین وضعیت عملیاتی یگانه‌های موشکی مستقر در این پایگاه. بر اساس تصاویر، موشک‌های سوخت مایع عماد، قدر، قیام که از جمله دارایی‌های راهبردی این پایگاه تاکتیکی است اینجا نگهداری می‌شود. خبرگزاری صدا و سیما با وجود ملاحظات شدید حفاظتی اجازه یافته تنها بخش بسیار کوچکی از این کوه یخ را نشان دهد. تصویر نوک قله این کوه یخ را که سر از آب بیرون آورده نشان دهد. یعنی حدود 90% بخش‌های دیگر این پایگاه جلوی لنز دوربین قرار نگرفته.
هر روز در اقصا نقاط این سرزمین به تعداد سامانه‌ها و موشک‌ها اضافه می‌شود. شاید دشمن تصور می‌کرد قدرت تولید ما منقطع شده است، اما نرخ رشد قدرت موشکی ما به روز است. همه اجزای قدرت ما، اما موشک‌ها واقعاً هر روز هم در کمیت، هم در کیفیت، هم در مهارت، هم در طراحی افزایش و ارتقاء ظرفیت و قابلیت می‌دهند.
این افزایش قابلیت یعنی نیروی هوافضای سپاه باز هم از موشک‌های جدید تولید شده خود و پایگاه‌های موشکی در آینده نزدیک رونمایی خواهد کرد. شاید هم باید منتظر یک شگفتانه عملیاتی باشیم تا محاسبات و معادلات در غرب آسیا دوباره به هم بریزد. یونس شادلو، خبرگزاری صدا و سیما، یکی از صدها پایگاه موشکی نیروی هوافضای سپاه پاسداران انقلاب اسلامی.
Я, как Крахмалев Василий Константинович, попал на завод 2 января.
Russian military correspondents released footage on January 11, 2025, showing the mass surrender of Ukrainian soldiers as a terrible form of self-defense in Karahovo city and its outskirts. Keep in mind, Karahovo was recently conquered by the powerful Russian military, and the Russian Defense Ministry officially reported its capture on Monday, January 6. After a month of fierce fighting, the strategic city in Donetsk was practically unharmed. About 4,000 residents out of 18,000 who lived here before the conflict remained in their homes. The situation in the city is now calm as reported by the Russian war correspondent on January 12, when he visited Karahovo for the first time. Vasily Krakmal, on behalf of the prisoners of war of the armed forces of Ukraine, told how they could not withstand the rapid attacks of Russian troops during the storming of Karahovo city, and in the amount of 16 people, made a smart choice to lay down their arms and surrender to the Russian military at Karahovo Industrial Zone. Krakmal also revealed details of his orders and urged his colleagues to save their lives. They exposed the deception of the commanders of the armed forces of Ukraine, the poor provision of weapons and supplies, and the senseless resistance of the trained professional units of the Russian armed forces. Now, this leaves the Ukrainian military with one chance of salvation, to benefit themselves and their families at home. Russian fighters from the South Group of Forces say that the Ukrainian defenses in and around Karahovo were completely unprepared for a multi-layered defense. In the liberated Shevchenko, a general view of the star-shaped defensive positions abandoned by Ukrainian troops, and then captured by the Russian armed forces. The Ukrainians continue to retreat, making room for the Russian army to advance. At the same time, in Yantarny sector south of Karahovo, Russian soldiers from the 10th Tank Regiment of the 20th Division raised a flag over the village. The Russian Defense Ministry reported today, January 12, that units of the South Group of Forces managed to liberate the settlement during active offensive operations. The defenses in Yantarny, north of Suky Yali River, were broken through, and units of the Ukrainian 79th Air Assault Brigade were shot down and captured. Neither drone strikes, cluster munitions, Western weapons, tanks, nor underground fortifications were able to stop the advance of the Russian assault troops.
A few hours ago, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation officially announced that on the night of January 12, the Russian Aerospace Forces, together with the missile forces, launched a combined missile attack on the infrastructure of enemy military airfields in 139 districts of Ukraine. At the same time, representatives of the Russian Defense Ministry added that all the intended targets were successfully hit and destroyed. Commenting on this missile attack, independent monitoring services confirmed that on the night of January 12, about 30 powerful explosions were recorded on the territory of military airfields in the central and western parts of Ukraine. My dear truth seekers, I want to highlight that following the loss of several F-16 fighter jets to Russian missile strikes, the Ukrainian General Staff, alongside their NATO military advisors, chose to utilize airfields in Romania and Poland for the deployment of these limited American fighters. At the same time, NATO and the Ukrainian military used the air harbors on Ukraine's territory only as so-called jump airfields, where American fighter jets are refueled and rearmed before combat sorties. As it turned out, on the night of January 12, the Russian aerospace forces and missile forces attacked precisely these so-called jump airfields on the territory of Ukraine. As it turned out at the time of this missile attack, the Ukrainian army and NATO forces were preparing to launch an airstrike on the Crimean Peninsula, using F-16 fighter jets, armed with Storm Shadow cruise missiles. However, thanks to Russian intelligence and the professional actions of the Russian aerospace forces and missile forces, Moscow's enemies failed to do this. On the night of January 12, dozens of Russian ballistic and cruise missiles, together with kamikaze drones, rained down on enemy military airfields. As a result, NATO forces and the Ukrainian army were not only forced to abandon the launch of airstrike on the Crimean Peninsula, but also suffered significant losses in manpower and equipment. Against this backdrop, I would like to highlight the military airfield in Martinovka, Nikolaev region. As it turned out, on the night of January 12, the highest number of explosions were recorded on the territory of this airfield. Later, representatives of the Russian underground in Ukraine confirmed that 10 Ukrainian soldiers, along with 2 U.S. Air Force officers, were killed during this missile attack. It is reported that deceased U.S. Air Force officers were responsible for the maintenance of American fighter jets before their combat flights. Moreover, according to them, Russian missiles also critically damaged one F-16 fighter jet, which was preparing to perform a bombing sortie at the time of this missile attack. Let me remind you that this is far from the first case of the destruction of American F-16 fighter jets on the territory of the so-called jump airfields. So, in early September last year, an authoritative Ukrainian journalist Anatoly Sherry stated that 4 American F-16 fighter jets were destroyed during a Russian missile attack on the Starokostiantynov airfield. In total, according to preliminary data, since July last year, Ukraine has lost 10 units of F-16 fighter jets, including 3 experienced pilots.
Coffee, follow me.